seconds to go get water.
Snap Crickle Pop, yes. Yes. I didn't know what to put. I don't think it's ears. I think it's a person. I think it's pointing a person to a.
I was thinking.
Sure. Okay. Well, I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
One of those things. You only have to ask me once.
I just want you to get credit for the classes you come in.
For my training.
Yeah.
Where's my cup? Where's my cup? I too. I don't. Oh, it's right in the back. Randy, we're gonna be at the table. Or you're gonna be at the table. I'm not. The royal we here. That was made by a 3-year-old.
Last time I was in an event like this was in the Senate,
Oh, no.
U.S. Senate. How are you?
Good, how are you? I'm in your seat, aren't I?
You're fine. It's government operations.
If you were still our guy.
Up here, Stockton? Is that what you said? Or down there? Randy?
Hey, how are you?
Great to see you.
No, thanks. I'm good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, I know it's been a while, but
I might steal this chair when I leave.
His recovery?
Yeah, maybe still.
It took like 2 weeks for the kidney to pass.
I might steal this. This might be back to my house and put mine out.
Yeah, but lost 30 pounds. Then was right back.
Oh, these are good. Good. My mother-in-law's recipe. That woman can cook.
No. And they're like, no skiing for, 3 more weeks, but did he listen?
he's young.
You're young. You're my kids.
Who made the dinosaur so cute?
My grandkids.
Oh,
I was just grateful it was my children's kitchen, not mine, because there was more flour on the floor of the dog than there was.
amen.
Serene soul.
We don't have an owl anymore?
It's only 6 hours.
Randy, how are you,
We don't
sir?
have an owl
Doing well.
anymore?
Good to see you.
Is this it? Is this an owl or a speaker?
That's a speaker.
I can take a picture with my phone and show you now. I have a stereo.
Oh.
Well, I was gonna say, I hear you. I don't know why we don't have those, then we don't have to talk right into it. Yeah, and then we're gonna authorize all this. Sure. It's a real tight budget.
just,
I've always successful. It's a talent.
I'll probably just run through a few things, and you just might have to chase me on
I
it.
shall.
Okay?
We're waiting on you.
Okay. This is it?
Yeah.
This is us. This is
Welcome
the
to
work
our
session.
session.
All right, well, it's
Super
pretty
fancy.
simple. So this to me is just a single issue. It's not about ranges, future ranges. It's really not about the range, it's about the situation. So, quick recap, I've dealt with closing ranges before. My time with the Ogden Police Department Assistant Chief, I was assigned to try and close our range. That was 24 years ago, that range is still open. And we go up there twice a year, fire a few rounds, and leave. And the reason is because 24 years ago, our range is about a fifth of the size of the Morgan County range. Was several $1 million. There were figures, but several $1 million to remediate clean range. This to me this issue is about one thing, and it's about not exposing the county to a potentially catastrophic financial situation in dealing with that land. And the reason is, the reason that I'm here and that this has come to this is because I have some experience with all kinds of ranges. I've seen this issue before. And so I went out and I did some research initially just to try to explain, a few meetings ago, try to explain what my concerns were. And then when it came back up again, I went further out because I wanted to ensure that I was fairly current on what was happening. And so the concerns were, and I know each of you has this document here, but this is a synopsis of the various sections of the EPA guidelines that impact or may impact Morgan County in terms of closing a range. It's all about hazardous waste. It's all about lead removal and land remediation. Two pieces to that. And someone told me you've seen this before over 10, 12, 14, 16 years ago. There was a similar discussion. So I will just go quickly. The first, on the third page, under D, facility closure, abandonment, or major range development. Abandonment is, and it's highlighted, there you go. Abandonment is non-use for 365 continuous days. That's when the EPA considers a range closed. Okay,
That's why you go fire a few rounds twice.
That's why we go up twice a year and fire a few rounds, right? And so that's one item that might impact what Morgan is talking about. If you go to F, I didn't highlight it, but there is the water issue. And part of that is drainage. What we had to do at our range, even while we were still using it, because they had come up and looked at the issue of drainage for some reason, we ended up having to put a specialized catch basin in the main route where the water was coming down and entering the, whatever they call it, entering where water spreads out and goes down and gets into the creek and the Ogden River. And so if they observe or see flows from a potential lead hazardous site, then they come in, they test waters, and they don't just test the range, they don't test the immediate entry point, they test around various sites where water runs, and they do that, so that's a piece.
So Randy,
Go.
just one more thing.
Sure.
Back on the abandonment. So if you abandon it, or say we decide we want to sell it or get rid of it or whatever, would that abandonment have to sit there for a year before before we can do anything?
There are some additional provisions that I'll go over here, and then we can discuss that. So if you go ahead a few pages, it says section 5, summary table of major federal triggers. Trigger being when they believe a remediation remediation, lead removal and remediation will have to occur. Okay? If you look there, I highlighted range closure or redevelopment, and that comes into the question of what is redevelopment. You go over one more page, range closure or land redevelopment, right? If you go to the next section, core federal legal definition of redevelopment, which is what I was researching as well, is what constitutes redevelopment that might trigger the action. If you get down to legal significance, this language establishes that redevelopment occurs when previously used land is expanded, redeveloped, or reused, and environmental contamination is present or suspected. Now, the specifics of what that might be, I don't know. That would be the EPA. But if you look at the next highlight here, definition is intentionally broad and is the primary federal legal context in which redevelopment triggers environmental assessment and remediation obligations. And if you go over to the next, it's talking about the EPA programmatic definition. It's the RCRA Corrective Action Cleanup. And that's the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, which is also under the purview of the EPA. They're the ones who trigger it, order it, supervise and have oversight over it, right? You go down 2/3 page. Under RCR development, redevelopment is typically interpreted as, and I just went to the last one, conversion from one functional use to another. And then as we continue down, you go over another page. So legal implication is redevelopment is treated as planned reuse or repurposing of property, particularly where contamination affects safe future use. And one thing that's critical, the first time I talked about it, that you understand, is that the county owns a cradle to grave. And that's the term, right, in the EPA regulation, cradle to grave. It doesn't matter who you sell the land to. It doesn't matter if the developer offers, right? If there are, and if they were willing, they could do that. But responsibility rests with the county for any future use of that land once it became a range. And once the
Meaning their future liability.
you have it all, right? Safe development, 20 years from now, some child shows up with a lead issue, you own it. Okay? So the term is cradle to grave within the regulation.
Even
So
if it's completely cleaned up, the site and everything.
you still have, if, let's say they missed a pocket, you still have it.
And so there's no way we can even get out of that at all.
You're not, if you do a complete cleanup,
Cradle to grave.
right?
But I'm just
And-
saying, is there a way to get through the grave part?
No, no. My understanding is no,
The dog.
it would take some research by legal.
So what I have researched on CERCLA specifically, Janet was looking at it as well and sent me a document that's approved by the EPA that I can forward to you as well. There are some exceptions, but the county doesn't fall into any of those because the exceptions would be that we were a bona fide purchaser for value after the fact, and so we can limit some of that exposure. My understanding is the county's owned this for decades and decades. We're the initiator, and so there is zero way that we fall in an exception to liability.
That's my understanding too, but
Okay, because I'm just
I'm
wondering,
just a normal guy.
if it's completely cleaned up, and certified by the EPA, then why would we have any kind of legal
The
reasoning for that?
EPA will not certify the land as clean. What they'll do is they'll come in and retest and say that you are below hazardous levels, but they will not certify the land.
Because then they would assume any
Because they don't want
liability.
to let it.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Sounds like my principal.
They will,
Nothing at all.
and I'll explain how they test here in just a minute. So if you go to section 4A, change in functional land use, redevelopment commonly means converting property to different use. EPA specifically recognizes redevelopment when land transitions such as, and it's got a list of them. If you go over to the next page, B, physical expansion, redevelopment can also occur when existing developed land is, and I just marked structurally modified, but those are the pieces. And if you continue down, D, construction or reconstruction activities intended for new occupancy. If it's intended for new occupancy, you fall under the EPA rules and regulations, right? And that may very well be a trigger.
So even under B, if we structurally modified the existing range, that would be
I'll talk
redeveloped.
about that.
Does that include the berm that we just kind of?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Bring that one up in a minute and I'll explain that one. So preparing land for, and then there's, if you go over section 5, it's activities commonly considered redevelopment by EPA and environmental courts. Okay? And if you go down, the big one is under land use conversion activities, rezoning to new use.
So as soon as you rezone it,
That's my fear. That's the trigger, right? Now, then if you go down further, and I think I've made my point. You can go further and you can read what I've highlighted.
No, I read
you've
through
made
that.
your point.
Yeah.
I read through it all.
What, so another one with the rezone, obviously, I mean, I think that's what triggered your thoughts was when we were talking about rezoning the property. But what about annexation? Because I know
That's
that's
for
coming.
new use.
So if the city
And it would be
annexes our
rezoned
property,
as part of an annexation.
Now,
but see,
again,
right now, we're in the city's annexation plan. So if next month they decide to annex that property into the city, that could also trigger it.
yeah.
So the city needs to be aware that if they all of a sudden decide, well, we're gonna annex the rifle range into the city, they could trigger this environmental
again-
problem.
So this goes back to the concept of original use. Original ownership, original use.
Well, originally used was agriculture.
It's the county's problem, and will be the county's problem in perpetuity. That's,
Even with the city taking it over, if the city did.
Well, if the city were to annex it, and, well, I guess,
Take it over.
I mean, because
We'd
we
still
were,
own it.
we caused it, the county caused the issue. And so when Randy brought up the whole, if we request a rezone, that can trigger the EPA to step in. So that was my question is,
The city's still the county. It's all our money.
but what I'm saying though is that we don't want to trigger something. I think that's
Right,
Randy.
I agree.
So if the city comes in and also says, we're going to annex that into the city, they could inadvertently trigger the EPA to step in. I think the city needs to be made aware of that if you annex this into the city,
so I
you
would,
could possibly trigger this,
yeah. So
causing who knows how many millions of, we don't know.
we don't,
Correct.
and the one thing I would avoid if possible is poking the bear. What do I mean? I mean, asking the APA to come and look at it, do something, right? Because if they look at it and they go, look at that water run, I mean, they might feel duty bound to cause you to do something, right? As long as it's, and again, the range piece of this is really irrelevant to me. That's not what I'm here about. Right? I like ranges, I like using that range, I use it a bit, but I use other ranges. And I'm not pitching for it to continue to be a range, but as long as it is a range that is in use, EPA leaves you alone. There's no trigger activated. It's when you try to change a piece of lead contaminated land that you trigger the requirements for a cleanup and land remediation. So that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So when they test, what they do is they come and they look at use, and they do a survey of where lead might have gone, which is in some cases quite a ways up the hill. You can have lead as long as you don't go past so many parts per million per whatever the measurement is.
Right.
And it's not very high. It's not very high. So they go up and they essentially, and there's the question of who pays for this, because normally the entity that owns the land pays for the EPA to do the initial testing to tell you how, right? So they go up there and they do plots. They line it out, they grid it, and they do testing, and they say, okay, past here, there doesn't seem to be any lead beyond the norm. Above here, there doesn't seem to be any. So between left, right, top, bottom, here are the zones that have concentrations that are above the allowable legal limit for health regulation and safety, right? And these you must do. So the normal thing to do is to then scrape that land to 4 inches deep. inches deep. The issue, the part of this is the dirt that you remove. If if it stays a range and they make you deal with lead contamination, you can keep the dirt that's contaminated on the property you own. You just can't move it off. If you're cleaning it up because of trigger of like these, you want to change the nature of the land.
Probably own that dirt in perpetuity too, wherever we haul it to.
So there is
Down
a
to Moab to that,
there is a
uranium
place in
deposit.
Grantsville, but lead above a certain level, that dirt that's contaminated above that level has to be in sealed barrels, and it has to go to a hazmat certified storage facility somewhere in the United States. Grantsville might be number 5. Originally, over the years as I've been watching this, there are 4 in the United States that accept that because they're stored forever. Grantsville apparently has one. I didn't know that. I was told that by someone. But again, you're looking at the same thing. You're looking at all the work has to be done by people in hazmat suits with certain grade filters, all the stuff that you want to do. Right? So, questions?
So I do know, so I've been speaking with Ogden Gun Club, and, they have their range cleaned every so many years. And so they've actually given me some numbers. There's like, this is something that you should get into a repetition to clean up all that surface lead. And so I've got those numbers now, and there's one guy, he'll come out and he'll actually do test holes and tell us kind of what we're looking at. But they will come out and basically they windrow the dirt between 4 and 8 inches deep.
Yes.
And then they separate, they'll do either a wet or a dry wash, and they separate the lead from the dirt. And then basically they split the lead with you. Like, they'll scrap it all and you get 40% of the money or 30, or it just depends on what they're doing. He says this is
They're
something.
still doing that?
They're still doing it.
Okay.
He says
because for a while people didn't buy lead anymore. It wasn't.
Oh, he says they did it last year with this one company. He says one year they held the lead because it was only at 60 cents a pound. We wait till it's like 80 to get a little bit more of the cost. But he gave me a couple numbers of a couple of companies that they've used. One he says we haven't used yet, but he goes I want to try them on our next cleanup. But he says depending on when your last cleanup, and I'm like, if we've ever had one. And so they will come out and actually look at it, and he says all that lead shot, and after the shotguns, they basically put it into big windrows. They scrape it, put it in windrows, and they come through with the machine. And he says the wet scrub is the best way to do, wet wash is the best way to do it because it kind of cleans it all out.
Did he say how much it costs?
They take the lead. They make their money on
They
the
don't
lead.
charge you anything? They
Correct.
just take the lead?
They take the lead, but you can, depending on what it is, they'll do a 70-30 or a 60-40 is typically what it is, a split. Or he's like last year they did a 70-30, so they got 30% of the money generated by the lead, but they don't actually.
Are they certifying that it's below a certain part? Or are
They-
they just cleaning up lead?
They're just cleaning up lead, but
Okay.
one of these guys, he will come and test and tell you what your parts per million is. His recommendation was like, have them come and clean your surface. You need to do it anyways. If you're going to keep shooting there, have it cleaned up, and then have this other guy come in and they'll do your tests and set that in. And he said that's between typically $30 to $35 per test pit, and they just go in there and dig it down, and they'll send it to. He goes, if you remember, they send it to BYU, and then they bring it back and say, here's what. Kind of give you a plan of what your range looks like and whatnot. So
How long does that usually take?
I'm sorry.
Did he give you a timeline of how long that takes?
To clean it up, it usually takes about a week. He goes, we shut down our range for a week. They come in there. Like I said, we've been playing phone tag over the last couple of months. He's out of the country and out of the state. He called me as I was walking in today. So I've got these numbers. I spoke with Kate. Said I can make the calls, or she wants to make the calls. However we want to do it. But I think it's something to. Let's see what we've got. I mean, we want people to continue to enjoy the range, to continue to shoot. But let's
We ought
make
to do
it.
that before we be putting dirt over it.
Well, yeah, and nothing. I don't think the actual range. We just built those berms because there were houses exposed and everything else. So, but I think the actual shooting surface. I don't think we've done much of anything. Just building those berms bigger and taller to contain our shooting.
So they don't do the berms, they don't clean the berms.
He basically says the way they do it is they just basically go and clean up the flat surface. But again, we can talk to these two different companies and say, what do you do, how do you do it, what's your recommendations, you know, kind of go from there, so. But at least that way we're, you know, if,
Well, you're being proactive.
we're being proactive, you know, because I think that's a concern, is that the range has been there a long time and nothing's really been done other than, one of the comments he made is, you know, you look at your use, and it's like, you know, people rent it and their families go use it, but it's not like we're having competitions and shooting massive competitions week after week after week. He says they did one, he goes, you can go and hand sample it if you want to. He goes, you can go up there and you dig an 8x8 by 4 to 6 inch deep hole, and you wash that and scrub it, and you take your lead, you'll sift the lead out. And he says they just did one, and in that 8x8 by 4, they had between 3 and 4 pounds of lead.
That's scary.
And so, and that's because of how much
My
they
best
shoot.
friend's boys almost died of lead.
Of lead poisoning,
In the
yeah. It's a
hospital
serious
for
deal.
3 months.
And here's a figure for you. This is an outdoor range, so it's not a concern, but it was just a recent survey done by government auspices, and they picked random indoor ranges around the country, and 84% were above the safe lead amounts, and then they tested the people there. In other words, 84% of the employees who worked at these ranges, these are commercial ranges, were above the range levels.
Wow.
So they have continued health issues. So
I've
so
worked-
EPA shut several of them down.
Could a resident trigger EPA, like if they called with a complaint or something?
Anybody can.
So-
There are more. There are a few ways to get lead contamination, but if somebody has, like friend's child has lead contamination, lead issues, then they start looking for sources. Well, where do you go? What do you do? And,
If dad's an
shoot
ammunition
once in a while,
reloader,
do whatever.
good luck planning on anybody else but dad.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're a reloader, because when I worked at a rifle range, he's like, you guys all reload, you're all around lead. So if you, and this is high-tech filtration, and it's amazing still the lead dust you find up on top of those. You've been inside them.
Well, with the range, the Weber County range, 2 of their employees recently were way above, and so they're instituting some new procedures. But again, that's very contained.
Right.
This is an open land, but I wouldn't, if it starts blowing dust up there, I don't think I'd breathe it at that range. From experience, that range is way above safe levels on that.
Up here.
Way above your range.
And that's, I'm not, you know, even from Nate, I don't know if you know Nate, but he's the president of Ogden Gun Club. He's the one I was on the phone with. He says, the amount of shooting you guys, he goes, even the years it's been in existence, he goes, I can't imagine you having super high levels. He goes, it's not like down here where they're competition shooting. He goes, you're not going to, he's like, you're not going to find 3 to 4 pounds in an 8x8 little box. And so, but he did recommend, he's like, I would get on kind of a schedule. He goes, they do it every 4 to 6 years, depending on how things are going, just to do that surface materials. And that helps keep any leaching down into the dirt, into the substrate. And so,
And back to the initial piece here is, yes, I think it'd be smart to look at a way to clean the range, get some idea about how much lead. So that doesn't stop the triggering of an EPA inspection and potential ordered land remediation.
but we shouldn't be pursuing things that will trigger that.
I'd be very careful.
Yeah, so.
So on that, in your change of use, would you include, like if we were to take the existing rifle range and make that an archery range and then build it somewhere else, a rifle range, would the fact that we took the rifle range and now made it predominantly for archery, would that be considered a change of use? Because that's what was recommended at the last planning commission
Have to
meeting.
go up there and shoot a few rounds.
We'd have one bird, and we'd have the sheriff's office go up there and shoot a couple times a year. This is our range.
I don't know, but I would say that's going from a firearm range to an archery range is a significant change.
But this one's gonna eventually.
That's what I would say.
Somebody's gonna get hurt.
But I don't know
Some
that
kid's
that's
gonna wander up on that hill.
from this, I don't know.
Just as you're shooting.
I think, I mean, and one thing, and I think for anybody that's listening, you know, online or whatever to this, when we first talked about this back in December, November, we didn't know.
Right.
We had no idea. So now we've got some information, and I think, I mean, my opinion is obviously with any sort of a rezone, anything that would trigger this, I think we stop. You know, we push the pause button on that. Look at the remediation, but we don't even know how bad it is.
Right.
We don't even have a clue. Like, maybe we clean it up and then we have some tests done and they're like, oh yeah, you guys are so far below, you don't even have anything to worry about. Well, that opens up a whole nother conversation. And that's where I appreciate Randy, and you put a lot of work into this. And I think we've all had phone calls about the rifle range and concerns. And I think the biggest thing is that we're not intending to close the rifle range. We want people to shoot. We want, but we want it to be safe. The city has built homes on 3 sides of our rifle range. That's a concern. And I think it's a legitimate concern, just like with any lead that may be up there. I think as we move forward, I think number one is let's clean what we got. I would say we do some testing and just see where we're at. What do we need to be concerned? Do we need to? I mean, any one of us can go up there and say yes or no, but until you test it, you don't know. But with testing, would that, if we had it tested, would that be a trigger? I didn't see that in there.
It depends on who does the testing. I think if it's an independent company that can do the testing for you, it'd go that way.
Okay.
I would just try to avoid
The EPA.
popping up on the EPA's radar right now
Sure.
until you have more information and a better handle on the situation. I will also say that I think as you move forward and you look at what's to come in the future, if there's another range to be done, we should talk about how to cause this not to happen at a future new range. And there are ways. I've worked on ranges all around the country, and there are ways to do this that you would have an easy way to stay below the lead amounts with regular cleanup and so on.
I think that's one great thing. I was not at last week's planning commission meeting, but the one prior when this originally came up. And, for the residents, I thought it was really good. I mean, I had no idea we had the kind of knowledge that we have in this county when it comes to the ranges. People that have worked on them, built them, decommissioned them. And so I appreciated all those comments because it's like, okay, those are people that we can lean on and say, hey, help us, because I think when you look at Morgan County, I think we love the outdoors, whether it's hiking, whether it's horse riding, just being a rancher, shooting, flying, whatever it is. And I think we want to continue to be that. And I think there's a lot of people in this community that love the range. They love to shoot. They love to use it with their family, and we want to continue that. But let's do it the right way. So I appreciate, the people that did speak out, kind of got our attention. Again, we do listen. I know a lot of people say that the commission doesn't listen to it, but we do hear you. But we want to make sure that we do it right. And so I think, if that's the direction we go with a new location, we certainly want to make sure we don't want to just create another problem. Let's do it the right way.
And on that,
This, again, with a new facility.
Correct.
It's not going to be us, but 20, 30 years down the road, I guarantee you, every range I've been involved with forever, but Camp Williams, when I enlisted in the Army, Camp Williams in 1981, there was nothing else out there. Now we have homes completely built up again, and we can't do certain, I'm no longer in, but the Army can't do certain training anymore without specific permission and public notice and so on and so forth after certain hours because of the encroachment. And it's a fact of life. It's not going to change. So, we all work on it. We get a new range in 20, 30 years from now. If you find flat land to put a range in, there's going to be flat land nearby to put homes on.
The problem is that runs right through the river, runs right along, and that causes even more problems when you have the water. So, but, all right. What were you going to say, Kate?
and to that since we were working on, remediating it regardless, and cleanup, it was nice. When in those planning commission meetings, the knowledge sharing, especially to remind us where the shooting footprint has been in the past, because I know the current footprint is not where the footprint has been previously. So we want to make sure we get all of that when we get it tested. So. Okay.
No, I don't have anything else. I appreciate all your work, Randy. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful, that was very informative.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
you
Thanks,
doing that.
Randy.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
see you later.
How often does that happen? Work session before 10 after 5.
Yeah, what do we got we can do in the meantime?
into our commissioner comments. Yeah. Actually, we could discuss some of those things.
Yeah.
We could discuss some of those bills. And the public can hear us here. Did you guys read through, and this is off the subject of legislation, but on our employee handbook, did you guys read through every single bit of it? No. Okay.
It's too much.
I was gonna say, it's a lot.
Do you want me to bring Casey in?
On which one?
Well,
The employee handbook.
there's some things in there I had questions on that were,
Should we divvy up chapters?
some of it was redundant, some of it was misspoke, and then there were some other problems. Anyway, I got a whole list in my notes here, and so I just wondered if we wanted to go through that now with Casey before it comes up as an action item.
Yeah, have Casey come in.
Yep, I just messaged him. And there he comes. They have more, so our work session ended early, so while we have 25 minutes, Commissioner Fackrell and some of the other commissioners have some notes on the employee handbook. Okay.
Gotta get
Do you have a
for-
page?
Down.
Yeah, go
Okay.
for it. And I'll
Great.
pull up whatever page you need.
Uh,
Okay.
Did you bring one? Oh, you got your high-tech note taker.
So this, you contracted this out, right?
had an attorney look it over, yes.
Did you, like,
Yeah, yeah, so.
wow, way to go. Is that the first time you've ever done it?
From scratch, kind of, yeah. So I've, redone other handbooks that I've had in the past, but this was the first time I took one and made it, just like completely overhauled it, so.
When I get to it, I'll have it here for you.
Actually, I'm gonna pull up.
Enjoy the process.
Not really.
At least he's honest about it.
It was about 4 days of just staring and looking at stuff that was very bland. Even for me, which is.
Okay, I mean, these are just some things.
Yep.
On page of the handbook.
Of the handbook.
Of the handbook, it would be page 10. That's where I started with some things. It says here in number 1, 2, 3, third paragraph down, the last sentence. Continued employment constitutes acknowledgement of the employee's responsibility to stay informed about and comply with the most current version of this policy. Do you need about in there? Because I tried taking it out a few times and I thought, it doesn't sound quite right. Because it says responsibility to stay informed and comply.
Yes, stay informed.
And comply with.
Yeah, I believe about is the correct way to put it in there. In our everyday language, you can just say be informed on, or I'm informed, but it's, I believe it is technically supposed to be you're informed about the handbook.
So that means you don't need about.
So it is, you do need about, because that's grammatically the correct way to say it, I believe.
Stay informed about the handbook and comply with
That would be better. That would be
or
better.
just stay informed about.
But not grammatically would not be informed about. From my English experience. Mike's better at it than me.
Garrett's the grammar Nazi.
I don't think it's,
Could you say informed regarding? and comply with the most. I think maybe you're getting hung up, like, because there's the and in there, you read it, employee's responsibility to stay informed about the most current version of this policy and responsibility to comply with the most current version of this policy. You're just adding the conjunctive between the two things that you're responsible to do. So I think it's fine
Sorry,
the way
what's
it's
the word?
written, but you could say stay informed regarding if you think that that's.
Well, I like the way Raylene said it.
We're in a work session.
My undergrad is English studies, so properly, I would be stating about common, like with.
So,
Perfect. Okay, so that was wrong. Okay, when we're on page 14, it talks about accommodations, and it says it says when a reasonable accommodation is available and does not create an undue hardship for the county. Okay. Problem that I see with that undue hardship for the county is it's in a couple of paragraphs there. Who's to say that it's an undue hardship for the county?
a reasonable person. That's the correct way that they define it, is a reasonable person would say that it's an undue hardship. That's the language that is necessary for any accommodation language. It needs to say that it's an undue hardship, and when the courts look at it, they say an undue hardship is defined as any reasonable person would find this as an undue hardship. So they use it to define itself, which is silly, but that's the way that it's been described by the courts and in the court's opinion, is an undue hardship for any reasonable person. Yeah, so that's what they've said, is that any reasonable person find it an undue hardship, and that's how they.
Because I'm seeing here, it does not create an undue hardship for the county. A lot of things, if we don't have things for that as a county, that's an hardship for us. So that's
Yes.
where, that's my question. That's, and I don't know, Gary.
It's like a similarly, sometimes the courts will say an individual in a similarly situated situation or like a comparable situation. And so an undue hardship for Salt Lake County might not be the same for Morgan County, but it's still a reasonable person standard, which the courts have kind of joked about. Does a reasonable person exist, right? Because everyone's a little bit different, but the idea is a reasonable person is what a normal person would do in a similar situation. And so I see no, there's no issue with this because it complies with the case law. I think what would happen though is if an issue came up, Casey would come talk to Janet or me and say, okay, how would the county defend this? And so there would be some discussion with legal about, does this qualify?
How is it gonna affect us as a county?
Yeah, and
Hardship for the county, not for the employee, because I understand their rights.
yeah, so they're exercising their right, but it doesn't,
Ours as a county and ours as a county body, what hardship is that going to do for us? Because I don't want to be termination on something like that. And is it something where we have to build a whole new facility just to take care of that?
that would arguably be undue.
I'm just saying in an extreme matter. But that's my question is are we gonna be held liable for something that is a hardship for the county?
We'll be held liable either way, whether it's in our policy or not, but the policy just gives transparency to what the law currently is.
Then, full-time. I thought we were not, I don't know if it's law or not. And that is where it says regular full-time.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I was. There we go.
Where it says that employees who are not in a temporary status and work a minimum of 30 hours weekly and maintain continuous employment status, those employees are eligible for full-time benefits package and are subject to terms, conditions, and limitations of each benefits program. We had a big discussion on that a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, actually, probably 3 years ago, where we said we did not want an employee that's considered full-time and getting full-time benefits to be working only 32 hours a week on average. And so that was something I think we discussed as a commission. We want to change that unless it's a legal
So that's
issue.
an employment classification. The Fair Labor Standards Act defines regular full-time employment as over 30 hours a week. If somebody's attendance and hours become in question, it's a supervisor's responsibility to make sure that they're getting the full 40 hours. If they are not, then they can be terminated. The regular full-time status and classification as per the Fair Labor Standards Act, this is what they define it as.
Give you your full 40 hours.
Not spelled today.
Our question 3 years ago or 4 years ago, whatever it was the fact that we did not want to hire somebody that was going to be just working 32 hours a week and give them full-time benefits. And that is something I still adhere to. I mean, I think we need to adhere to and enforce that they've got to average 40 hours or close to it. 35 and 36, I think, is what we determined that 3 years ago, was to go 36 hours and above would be considered. But under that,
So we can't change the term, we can't change the classification.
right.
We can't change the number of hours. The Affordable Care Act, they have to, so that's for the health insurance. They declare that 30 hours is considered full-time and for benefit purposes. We can't change that to 40 hours because it would violate the Affordable Care Act. So we use the language from the Affordable Care Act in there to put in the classification. When we hire them, it's in their offer letter that they are expected to work 40 hours per week, and their supervisor is expected to have them work those 40 hours. So, does that make sense?
Yeah. I just hope that
I think that's something you could deal with on a budget situation too. If you had a supervisor who was consistently saying, well, I only want my employee to work 32 hours a week and they're getting full-time benefits, then I think it would be a decision by the commission to say, okay, well, we're going to pull back funding on this position and it's going to be a 29-hour week position instead of a 50. So there's ways to, and I don't think that has to be done as part of the employment policies, right? I think that's something that we could address if it comes up. But I don't know that it will.
And then that's my
Hopefully it won't.
will sometime.
we should have our supervisors. We should expect our supervisors to hold their employees accountable.
Yeah.
Which is not going to have exact language for every single specific policy or every scenario that comes up. This is just a general guideline for employment here. And so we go, a lot of this is language that's necessary for the employment law and things like the Affordable Care Act that I brought up, that 30 hours comes straight from the Affordable Care Act.
All right.
So I had a question on page 27. Talks about overtime for hours worked in excess of 40.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't our public service, our sheriff's deputies work 48
They work 43.
or 43? Is that what it is? It's more than 40. I know
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
We don't pay overtime for that.
Uh-huh.
So do we need to adjust this to indicate or just
I
add
think there's a
for public service employees, this is 43 hours or whatever it is? I can't.
yeah. So give me just a second. I believe I included a section on.
If it's someplace else, great. That was the question as I scrolled through.
I will make sure it's included in there.
Was there also on the same page? Is it, I think that's the same page where it goes to 480. Was that what it's for? Or is it 480 for the total amount of hours? PTO.
480 is the amount of PTO that they are able to accumulate.
That was like we had a discussion last week. 480. 480. I'm okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not following you. Was it?
I think last week was on the comp time that it was way too much, and then we were saying comp time for law enforcement was 48 and 24 for
Okay.
non.
There we go.
Work schedules and hours.
Do we need to put something in there indicating that they're not gonna get paid overtime for anything in excess of 40 hours? 'Cause-
I can include that.
okay, just something that indicates that
Yep.
they're in a different category.
Yeah, I can.
It does say sheriffs, 43 hours for sheriffs.
But in that upper thing, it says
For overtime and
40 hours.
compensatory time.
40.
On page 29, Kate, second to the last paragraph, it probably should either say should or may, all three of them. You have two shoulds and one mays. Should have them all say one or the other. Employees who meet job expectations should receive a score, should receive a score. Employees who exceed job expectations should receive a score. Employees who are always going above and beyond may receive a score. So I don't know if that should be should or may.
And shouldn't it also be in half points instead of?
It does say you can have points above that. Yeah, that is spelled out.
Because well, that next week wasn't 29. That's where
Page 29, second to the last,
Cost of living.
last paragraph.
But the same, they
they should be made.
Could be 2.5.
Yeah.
Both should have may or permissive, so I think this would be good.
Yeah, for all of them, you want me to use May?
Mine. It's just me. I don't know if you need to put that where it says above also worship you out to the nearest half within that same paragraph. Just this one. Because some people are gonna say, well, I can do 3, I should have 4 instead of 3. Just
You've got about 3 minutes.
Page 33 under the nepotism section. It says to avoid favoritism and propriety, Morgan County shall restrict the hiring of relatives of current county employees and appointments. I'm thinking the intent is shall restrict within the same department, not shall restrict completely. Is that,
That'd be tough here, Mark.
that would be almost.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's
we've got-
exceptions for that.
But the exceptions talk about like emergency situations and things like that. It's not, and if you have a shall, I mean, that's pretty,
That's mandatory.
that's mandatory. So you either need to change it to may or you need to change it to within the department.
I would, is there anything in there about, like, they can't be an immediate supervisor?
Yeah, that's,
That's
I
what,
remember reading
I mean,
that.
that's the intention is that you don't have even
Immediate
within the same
supervisor.
department or supervisor. So we may need to rework that just a little.
if you go back to 1 to 33, cases they
You don't know the first one?
Oh, the first one's in the second paragraph of page 33. Without notifying the company of the absence.
Okay, and then the next one is where? You said country.
Yes.
I don't have the word.
Right below the company,
Okay,
right below it says, most cases, right below most cases.
country. I see it, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Page 31. Redundancy, where it's twice spelled out. Well, pregnancy related conditions, you got it also under the accommodation.
Okay,
So
I
I
didn't,
have to have.
I didn't know
have
that.
it. Yep.
okay, I heard,
Exactly the same
Yep.
thing.
what was the last one? Blaine, what's that last one? You on page 31? What did you say on page 31? What did you say on page 30?
Try and turn that on before I say that. Welcome, everyone. We appreciate your attendance this evening. We want to welcome those who are online. We just finished up our work session. We had a discussion on the rifle range. I think it was very beneficial and informative. So if you want to go back and listen to that, you're welcome to do that. We're February 17th, 2026, and we're going to start by having a opening prayer by Commissioner Nickerson. And he'll also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for this day and for the opportunity we have to commission. And we are grateful for all the many blessings which we enjoy within our community, and grateful for this moisture which we've been receiving, and praying we'll continue to receive this moisture that is much needed. We are grateful for the opportunity we have to serve the people of Morgan, and pray that we will be able to work together, be constructive, and be able to discuss the issues that we have before us and be able to work together. We're so grateful for all we have here, and we're grateful for our first responders and for our military, and ask you to bless them that put their lives on the line for us, for our protection. We're grateful for, again, for all we have. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
You'd rise and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sorry, I spelled your name wrong. Did you see that?
My turn.
Nixerson. I spelled your name wrong. Cindy, can you
She
correct
went
that?
to the Learning Center.
Okay, thank you.
Who is that?
He's new. He's new here.
Don Phonics worked for her.
Okay. Pray for snow. That was a heck of a storm we just got, so maybe tomorrow we'll bring something a little more. Snowmobiling has not been good to us this year. Okay, consent agenda items. Has everybody been able to take a look at those? And if so, any questions? If not, I'll look for a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda items as listed.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Commissioner Newton and a second by Commissioner Blocker. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, since we have a conflict, does anyone have any conflicts of interest this evening? Before we,
I live in the Cottonwoods, so
okay.
I'm part of the Cottonwoods.
That is definitely a conflict. Okay, in speaking to our attorney this afternoon, the applicant on the note on E5 has asked that that would be withdrawn from our agenda, but because we previously had set this for a continued item to a date certain, it had to be on our agenda as a public hearing. And we had to notice it. So rather than holding a public hearing on a potential development agreement amendment that won't be voted on today, we will have time for you to, we're not going to have a public hearing. So if you would, if you have something to share, please share it during our public comment time period.
So you're not going to do the item number?
Correct. That's correct. So with that said, now is the time for public comments. If you have something that you would like to come forward and share with the commission at this time, please keep it to close to 3 minutes as you can, and we'll go ahead and turn the time over to the public now.
My name's Kobe Kimball. Lived in Morganton for a couple years. I'm a contractor. With my dad, we built a couple houses here. I know that the fire is a discussion every day.
Will you pull up the mic just a hair?
Yeah, sorry. I lost my voice coaching basketball last night too. So. Anyway, I watch most of the meetings, so you guys are like my reality TV stars. I'm not here, but I do try to be informed, not only as a citizen, but it does help me, building houses, knowing the ordinances, knowing what is new. I watched extensively when the fire ordinance was passed originally. I don't agree with the way it was done. I would like to thank Matt and former Commissioner Jared. I thought at the time they did a good job of kind of shooting holes in it, and trying to really ask us what was necessary for our private residences in Morgan. I don't agree with the square footage that was set in that ordinance. It's kind of funny how you build houses. You can have a 5,000 square foot house that has the same footprint as an 1,800 square foot house, and so it's kind of, anyway, I don't agree with that. I think it needs to be changed. I don't know what it needs to be changed to. I agree with the state. The state ordinance is 10,000 square feet. in Morgan, we would be a little bit more strict. I understand our county's different, every county's different. But I've seen this. I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not building a house in the county. I live in the city. I have water to hook up, I have a fire hydrant, but I build houses. I see that it costs $20,000 to $30,000 for these fire sprinkler systems, especially guys my age. I'm 40 years old. They're trying to build their permanent residence in the county, and that's a pretty big expense for our residents to add, $20,000 to $30,000 to their builds. So I would strongly suggest making some sort of change. Like I said, I don't know the exact answer, but I would defer to the state fire ordinance, which is 10,000 square feet. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Heidi Nettleton. I represent the applicant for the DA amendment that we're not going to have a public hearing on today.
Right.
So sorry, I'm just catching up. There was emails going back and forth, so we weren't sure. We were ready to present some things to you today, but it sounds like we won't be allowed to do that since we canceled the public hearing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I would just because there's been a lot of misinformation, and I know there's a petition going around. I would like to see if we could get on your next work session, because there's just a lot of information that, and it was a complex amendment, and it's been since November when we had the work session when you saw it. So I just want to make sure that we clear out some things and see if that's appropriate to get on the next work session.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no other public comment, we will move on then. Kate?
This is a resolution of the commission to create a county rifle range advisory committee to recommend and advise on the future use, safety, and development of county shooting sports and their facilities in Morgan County, specified in subsection 2. The purpose being thereof to evaluate the current site for safety, noise, impact, and fire risk, develop a long-term plan for modern shooting sports and complexes, review and recommend updates to range fees, scheduling priorities and operational rules, and assist in the coordination, essentially of our WUI fire, requesting a membership of 5 to 7 members so that we have an odd number, and to include a representative from the sheriff's office, a representative from the fire department, a representative from our local shooting sports, and then the rest being at-large residents of Morgan County. Happy to answer any questions on my scribbles.
I love this. I think it's long past due, and I think it's going to be really. We have a lot of people with a lot of amazing knowledge on this. It's going to help us as a.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a question on one of them. You've got 3 of the items from the sheriff's department, one of them from the sheriff's department, one
Okay.
from the fire warden, and then the shooting organization. I'm fine with that one. And I'm fine with one of the other. Do we need both of the other 2, law enforcement?
Law
That was my
enforcement and
question.
what?
Well, I don't know.
Fire.
Fire, I think ought to be there because
Sure,
there was
I agree.
Law enforcement uses it.
And I'm just wondering, what was the reasoning in the sheriff's department?
Because they are our number 1 user.
Whatever rules the committee recommends to us, we would follow anyway. So that's why I'm wondering should that just make it to where we have 3 at-large residents of the county instead of 3, or are we looking at 4? It'd be 4 if we choose 7. I'm just bringing
So the
the
reason
question
that I
up.
put county sheriff's office or local law enforcement is they use the county range to qualify, which they're required to do. If whatever group goes away from the requirements or the base necessity of what the requirements would be to qualify, then we, as the county, will be having to pay for them to qualify at a different range.
I'm not worried about that.
I'm
part. I'm just wondering is should they be on this advisory board?
That is
I don't see why they
completely up to you.
shouldn't.
Okay, that's fine. If we have 7, I think it's great. If we have 5, I can see.
No, I think 7 would be better.
And I have a list of people
They would love to be on there.
that have already emailed me.
I had
Love
one
to be
question for
nominated.
you.
Yes.
Under local shooting sports organizations, you use the example of 4-H shooting sports. Could that be a youth member that was in
Absolutely.
the 4-H program?
Whoever the commission chooses to put in for that spot. Yep. It's just we want at least one representative from a shooting sport organization, whether that's a high school student, whether that's Nicole Reed from Extension that is creating that. That is completely up to the commission who you appoint to that seat. We just wanted them to have a representative.
So I would go with the 7, not the 5.
I agree.
I did have one recommendation from a resident. They said they would like to see a member, somebody that like from Browning. He says when they used to work for Browning, he says they would always, here we have a major manufacturer of firearms in our community. They have their own range, but they have the connections. They know the people to have them part of it. He says they have a lot of influence and pull and things like that and those connections. And they just felt that it would be good to have somebody to represent Browning on that.
And I feel like the commission can
Yeah.
do that without locking up.
No, I
the
just think as we look at these
on
at
it.
large, if there's somebody,
Right.
that was something that, and I thought that sounded like a good idea, like somebody that's tied into the business side of things. And that I thought that would be, so if there's somebody that works at Browning that wants to get on there, just throwing that.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve CR 26-13 establishing the Morgan County Rifle Range Advisory Committee.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Newton and a second by Commissioner Nickerson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Okay, thank
Erica. Deputy Chief Erica.
right now. If you guys remember, a couple months ago, we came to you for some money for a culvert extension at the bottom of Hartscrabble.
Yes.
On Kilburn's land. That work was just completed this past week. What we found when we started to complete that was the pipe that goes underneath the road from the end of Hartscrabble to Neal's property is eroding, and is going to give way soon and needs to be replaced. If we don't replace that, it should wash out the road when it gives. So we're here tonight asking for $26,000 to complete that work. It would be completed in May or June, once the water levels go down a little bit, and that'll just hopefully prevent us from having to spend at least $200,000 if we don't take care of it.
Commission had asked me if there was funds to do so. Yes, there is funds in the flood budget if you want to
How much
delineate.
is in the flood mitigation fund?
This year, 121,237. Granted, 84,000 of that is already designated to the project at hand, which leaves 40.
So question I have for it, in that, the culvert they want to put under there is 24 inches. And it's gonna be concrete.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, should it be metal? The reason I'm asking is because of the concrete with all that pressure coming across it all the time on that road. Is that gonna cause a problem? You guys that are in it. I mean, Brett's got his hand up, but I'm not the chair.
For concrete, there's not enough cover, so it does have to be metal.
While you're up there, Brett, is this intended to be a change order from with the existing awarded?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
What will that do to our cost if we're going from concrete to steel? That,
I think
that's what we planned on to start with. I just didn't inform Erica, apologize.
I'm just looking at their bid and they got 24-inch reinforced concrete. So are we looking at going down?
That was the original.
Culvert extension that's on Neal Kilburn's land.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so that's the work that was just completed. That is covered.
Okay.
But underneath the road.
That culvert's got a high pressure gas line underneath it. So we have very little room to work with, and then the cover is not enough to put concrete back in, then we gotta go back to metal, so. Yeah. This one's been in since the sixties, so. 3-5 years. we're replacing it again.
So we don't have an actual bid, just them saying we can do this for 26,000. Okay. I just was looking at that bid and was like, wait a minute, that's, okay, I'm good.
Otherwise, we could possibly put concrete, just for the rooms.
So, looking for commission's approval to do that change order out of Fund 21.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the change order, the amount of $26,000 out of Fund 21 to replace the pipe, the corroded pipe at the bottom.
Motion by Commissioner Nickerson and a second by Commissioner Blocker. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. So I'm sorry, so it's done? Not the metal part, but the original work? Okay, or am I gonna get a bill at some point? Okay. Okay. Casey, you're up. Any other comments or amendments past what you discussed in right before this meeting began?
Yeah, there's more, but I'm just wondering if we can postpone this and we can put it into a work session and make sure that we've got everything correct and accurate as to what we want, because I know some of the commissioners were not able to go through it all the way.
Okay, you, just letting you know, your March 3rd work session is full. So it could be the Wednesday. That would be the soonest.
So-
Or could we send them our emails
Yeah.
with
18th?
suggestions
March 18th.
instead, which is what we were supposed to do last
But
time
we
we
didn't have
postponed
the
it.
final, we didn't have the final until now.
Option B would.
I
be-
guess my thought is if can we because some of it's just grammatical, and I don't think that's a big deal. The grammatical stuff, we can fix that. But if there's something significant, can't we change that anyway?
You would have
And
to
it's
change it by,
Bring it back.
yep, you'd have to change it by resolution. Option, so you have essentially 3 options to vote on it as is tonight. To postpone it to a date certain, which, if you want a 4 o'clock work session, you're looking at March 18th, or if you want to come in early and do a 3 o'clock or 3:30 work session on the March 3rd meeting, if you're wanting it on a work session.
And I have a question. So I read the whole thing. Are you wanting us to be the editor, like to fix the grammatical errors? Were we just looking for the substance? And good job writing your first handbook. That's
My
I need direction.
my goal
What-
for this
Yeah.
was to bring it to the commission, because ultimately it is the handbook that you're passing and you're having for our employees. I'm writing it and giving you a draft of it, but it is ultimately the commission approving it, and you have to be able to back it. And so if there's anything that you disagree with in there, I want to hear from you, and I want to have a conversation about that. If there's anything grammatical that is sticking out to you that makes you have a hard time approving it, I know I've had that where I'm like, there needs to be a comma right there. I cannot have it without a comma there. I've had that. Then that's fine. But my plan for the handbook is every year to update it, make changes as new laws come out, as situations occur. This is going to be a living document that comes before you all every year. So this isn't an end-all be-all document that is going to be ratified forever. It's going to come before you each year, hopefully. Does that help? Is that a non-answer?
So yes to
Yeah.
everything.
I would still.
No, I think it's fine to postpone it. I just don't know if we need a work session. we all
It's written in
take the time to
I think we just
email
look
our
through it,
stuff.
then email
Okay.
anything we see, and then just.
And if we have anything serious or stuff, we'll have a personal conversation with you on it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, what date certain? Just next meeting? That, everybody good with that? Okay.
So do we need to postpone?
Yeah,
I
would
need a motion, yep.
I move that we postpone CR 26-10, approving the Morgan County Employee Handbook to date certain of March 3rd.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Fackrell and a second by Commissioner Nickerson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. E4,
Mr. Chair, I move that we convene as the Board of Equalization.
I'll second it.
okay. Have a motion by Commissioner Nickerson and a second by Commissioner Blocker. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed? Okay, we are now a BOE.
Good evening. I am here for the Brooks Fernelius application. He was granted a late appeal by you on December 16th of 25. He has now applied for primary residential exemption. The reason you granted the primary or the late appeal was for a medical condition. So tonight it's before you to decide if you are willing to give him primary residence for an unforeseen circumstance.
For the tax year 2025.
Correct.
2026, he's already primary.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Janelle is unable to attend tonight. She's ill, so I'm kind of covering for her. I'm not sure if Mr. Fernelius is here. He wasn't sure if he was going to be able to get away from work. Looks like he's not here. So that's your decision before you. Are you okay with granting primary residence?
We already granted him the.
Yeah.
Grant the late appeal.
First, he was trying to get his value down also, and
Mhm.
I think in our meeting, we said no value.
So you can't discuss value. It's primary residential
Primary
exemption.
residence, sure.
So I think that's why we gave it to him, so.
So, Mr. Chair, I would move that we grant the primary residential exemption on BOE CR 26-2507-BOE.
Second.
Should, can I amend that to state our reasoning for unforeseen circumstances?
Well, the circumstances aren't why we're granting it. The circumstances are why we allowed him to appeal to say that it
Can we
actually
open
was
We don't need to
his.
restate it?
Yeah, so I don't think it needs to be, it's just simply we're granting that he can have primary, correct?
So what you'd be actioning is that it's either approved, modified, or denied to give the primary exemption, giving the assessor the authority to adjust the appealed parcel and then to allow, obviously, his ability to appeal even this decision to the state if he disagrees with your vote.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, who made the motion? Commissioner Newton? Second by Commissioner Blocker. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chair, I move that we leave the BOE.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Nickerson and a second by Commissioner Fackrell to go out of Board of Equalization and convene as a commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Chair, on number E5, I know at the beginning, you let the public know there wouldn't be a public hearing on that issue. There has been a request by the applicant to continue it to a date certain. They're still working through some of that, so I'm just asking that we postpone E5 till later in the meeting. In the meeting, because they're still determining whether to continue it to a date certain or renotice. There is a cost to renoticing.
Okay, so we're postponing it
If
in
we
the, in the
can, just
agenda.
to later in the
Okay,
agenda.
all right.
Chief?
Okay, E6, Chief Brad Wilkes.
I did, Chief Wilkes sent me a document today that I forwarded to you. I believe he has paper copies.
Does anybody need a paper copy? Okay.
Do you want that document up or the packet document? The one you sent today or the one you sent last week?
Let's do today's. I mean, this kind of, the one last week kind of overviewed where we kind of started, so.
Hey, Chief, if
Chris,
you
to
have
that.
a paper copy, I'll take one.
Wasn't sent out for our meeting today.
No, he just sent it today. So I know the conversation was about potentially modifying the existing ordinance. That's why this is scheduled for discussion and direction. So this is being, that Chief Wilkes has recently taken this position. This was what he specs as if he were to write this ordinance today, this is his recommendation.
So the preface is, when we were here last time, I walked in pretty new. I knew this was an issue, so I spent a significant amount of time the last 2 weeks looking into what we're doing now, what the surrounding agencies are doing, and what the code's requiring. Incidentally, Friday, Kate and I met with State of Utah over House Bill 48. So that's passed. That's taken away some of the latitude that we have to interpret code. And that's just the way it is. But having said that, right now, if you go through here, our code in Morgan County requires sprinklers over 3,600 square feet. Okay, I've met with the Deputy State Fire Marshal today. I presented this to him. He said he agrees. They would rather see lots of agencies a little more strict. However, we meet the intent of the code. We meet the intent of WUI. We meet the intent of House Bill 48 with what I'm proposing. So going through so anything from 3,600 to 6,000 square feet, I'm proposing you have a 2-hour fire separation wall over the 3,600 feet. So any of you that are in building, the best example is the townhouse project. So you got a fourplex that's 8,000 square feet. We separate that into 2,000 square foot units with fire separation. That's why sprinklers are not required in multifamily. That should apply to residential, in my view. So we can get away without the sprinklers. And then I put on there no sprinkler unless they're in the high hazard WUI. That's the new URAP maps through House Bill 48 that we are bound to follow. So that's just your high risk. So we ran our maps. Our 95th percentile, there's only 178 buildings in the entire county that are in the 95th percentile. So if we drop it to the 90th, we were looking at 450. Hopefully that makes sense that you're in a high risk WUI. We need to be a little more protected than down here in the valley.
And for the public, WUI is the
Wildland Urban Interface. That's a state code. It's a federal code the state of Utah has adopted. We've adopted the state code. I think it helps with the gentleman. I want to get it as standardized as we can to the state code to meet our requirements without overburdening people. But
and that's specific to how likely that parcel is to be in a wildfire.
Correct.
And to include embers.
Yeah, so the ember showers, and you can get on, we can forward you if you want to look at the URAP map now. It's available for the public, and they've got it right down to specific parcels what they expect an ember shower to be, which is how they rate fire ratings. Wind, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff. 13D sprinklers will be required if you're within that 90%. So if you're in that high risk WUI, we're still going to require sprinkling to protect. And that's part of what House Bill 48 is going to require us to follow. But if you're outside of the ember, 90th percentile, which, as I told you, that's my guess is in the 90th, we're going to have less than 450 properties in that percentile, and the rest are out. Full non-compliant exteriors per the WUI code in the 90th percentile, that means nothing that can combust. So no wood siding, no wood shingles, no wood trim. It's gonna have to be hardy concrete, a fire protected, and the code outlines what's available. You don't see a whole lot of vinyl siding going on anymore anyway, so. And then full compliance with the standards set in the WUI code. This is all, again, within the 90th percentile. If you're not in the percentile, then the fire rated separation, jump down to the 6,000 to 10,000 square feet.
Can I hop in real quick?
Yes.
I also wanted to clarify to the commission, HB 48 does allow, so if there was a parcel that we considered to be in the 90th percentile, there is an appeal process to get out of that percentile. So it's not set in stone.
I'm trying to find HB 48 and I keep finding.
It's last year.
If I may,
I got some juvenile.
of course, maybe we can do it after it's done.
Yes. So, and the other potential complication is House Bill 41 that's in session now is going to go amend 48 potentially in certain regards. And it's primarily going to be the Firewise about combustible trees next to houses. Park City's got representative to run it. It went through the committee today 17-0 in favor of change. And so that will potentially alter the Firewise, but if we write the code how I have it written, it's like everything else. We'll just follow the current guidelines. So if they amend the Firewise in Utah, then we'll adjust it accordingly so we don't have to keep changing by resolution. Any questions so far?
I have a question.
Okay.
In our county, we are deficient with some areas of the county. I'm not saying all areas of the county are deficient on enough water to be able to handle fire.
Oh,
But
it's
yet-
most, not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, why are we changing this to not be dependent on how much water is in that location?
So this particular proposal is item number 1. There's item number 2 and item number 3 on the next pages that are gonna want to talk about that tonight. Specific to the sprinklers, which my understanding was the thrust of the first part, correct? That's what this is. We have to deal with the water, but we'll get into that in a minute because I have that for you. That won't be a proposal. That's more to start talking points from my perspective with you, and then we can move forward with that. That help, Commissioner?
Yeah, that helps.
So 6 to
Not answered
10,000?
yet, but, you know.
Yeah. So 6 to 10,000, you'll see that there's not going to be a whole lot of changes other than we can require fire separation for every 3,600 square feet. So we're going to compartmentalize that fire. It's just buying us time, which we have to have. That's the reason for sprinklers, is to buy us time for my people's safety, to check that fire. It's not going to put a fire out. Don't anybody kid yourself. It's to check the fire. Having been a builder longer than I've been a firefighter, compartmentalizing with fire separation works. And it's a whole lot less money than throwing a sprinkling system in across the board.
I think that was one of the biggest things, is, I think, as we all spoke to different residents, is that, again, you get all the sides of the story, right? You get their side, and then the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? And it was, for some reason, some of these homes, they weren't allowing the fire separation. Like, no, we don't recognize that. Or there was some conflict there where, you know, I appreciate this, where it's like, you don't need sprinklers unless, you know, the 30th percentile, but recognizing that separation, because that's common throughout all of the industry, is we compartmentalize that fire, then we don't have to do these other things. And that gives people plenty of time to get out. And so putting that into our code, and not just, it's somewhere in the, you know, the IFC somewhere, that puts it into our code. So
Right, and that's my whole point. My job and my goal here, as long as I'm your chief, be safe, but to standardize. Standard policies equate to standard operations, which equate to standard outcomes on our end. But as a builder, what's better than to walk in and be handed a piece of paper? This is how it is. You know up front what you're getting into, but I'm not going to go to across a street and have a change. I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
So again, on the 6 to 10,000 feet, we'll just require that separation at every 3,600 feet. But again, we're gonna, if we're deficient in the water, when you're getting into the bigger ones, because that's commercial firefighting, then we potentially will require the sprinkler if we don't have water. More questions on that 6 to 10? 10,000 square feet and above, again, 2-hour separation, compartmentalize it into 3,600 because that is the basis of the International Fire Code. IFC sprinkler system, we're going to require 13D system if it's over 10,000 feet because you're basically, that's a lodge or a hotel. So when you get a house over 10,000 square feet, I mean, hopefully that makes sense. We've got to put protection system in. And in a nutshell, that is my recommendation for the sprinkler code, specific to the sprinkler code for the Morgan County.
So just a question on the 10,000 square feet and above. So the IFC fire sprinkling system required and the 2-hour fire suppression required for every 3,600 feet.
That
So
would be,
the sprinklers are everywhere.
sprinklers will, yeah, it'll have to be sprinklered per whatever the fire flow is. But we still want that compartmentalized. And if they choose not to and can come in with that would be what I refer to as the exception that we can look at. So if they want to come in and do a full-on sprinkling system and they have the water, maybe we can back off a little bit on the square footage on the fire separation, but there will be no exception for sprinklers over 10,000 because we really shouldn't be allowing exceptions. That's like a small hotel.
Yeah, it is.
So, and I get it, you know, you got some of these 4-story atrium rooms in there, but that's why it's so much more important for us to get the fire separation between those rooms. It's on Stagecoach.
Some of them would have a hard time separating 3,600 square feet.
And that's where we would potentially allow the exception, which we would look at with building zoning and myself and make sure that we're
Sprinkler.
consistent. But if they have a reason and they're sprinkling it, then that would be something we would certainly look at giving an exemption for. But again, the exception, not the rule. Because what I don't want is to be the games played. Well, we can get around it by. And I think when you don't have a document like this, that's what you open us up for. Is, well, he did, but I don't. So why do I and why should I? And it just tightens it up for everybody.
So, I'm just. So what is the 2-hour separation?
So 2-hour separation is fire separation wall. Typically it's 2 1-inch or 3/4 inch fire rated rocks.
Half-inch sheetrock's 1 hour burn rating. So I think like double half or 1 inch.
But 5/8 is
Two
fire
5/8s.
rated.
Two 5/8s
is what they
2 5/8 is the out 2 hours. Because I can't remember, the ceilings are different than the walls. But whatever it says, you know, we're not going to tell them. We'll just say meet it. Because when I used to frame, fire separation wall was nail it up, fire tape it. Now they have channels with 2-foot continuous, so you don't have the breaks and they slide it in. So
Like at the airport, we have to, on where a hangar's next to a hangar, we have to have 2 5/8s on those sides that are next to each other. Not the back. Unless the
So
back
even though
is-
they're 6 feet away from each other or 10 feet away from each other. you
yeah,
still
so
have
it's
to have
5/8, 2 5/8 and 2, yeah. And
So-
the new fire code in residential, and it's basically inch thick, 2-foot wide panels that are 12 feet, and they have metal channels that lock it in, so there's no nailing, no taping. But that's it's equating to the same thing as 4 5/8 is the point. However they want to do it, if the building code allows 2-hour rating, that's what we allow them. We give them the latitude either to do the panels and locks or nail the 5/8 on.
So within this recommendation here, if you had a 4,500 square foot home and you wanted to put an addition onto it of 1,500, would that put it into the second category?
Well, the additions really are,
You're talking, this would be new construction. So if you have a 5,000.
So it's only on,
home
because
now,
in our code, I think we have it as, if you put an addition onto it, above the 3,600 square feet that we currently have, then we have to do sprinklers. That's what the current
It's-
code. I think it is, Josh.
Now, right now,
Yeah, right now we do.
Yes,
So I just want to know if that's, we're
I
taking
don't
that out
know,
or not.
honestly. I haven't looked into the remodel, but I mean, across the board, then you put the fire separation in and it has to be built in of some kind. It's a good question.
He was asking Josh, if somebody has a 4,000 square foot home and they do a 1,500 foot addition, are they now required to sprinkle the entire home? Because they did the addition and they're over the 3,600 square feet, and so is it retroactive to existing structure?
I don't have an answer for that right now.
Come on, you're supposed to have all the
I know.
answers.
I usually do. I don't. I'll have to talk to our building official and see how they've been interpreting that.
But I mean, I would almost think that, you know, if you do fire separation between the existing structure and the new structure, then you'd be under your square footage, then you should be fine.
In this.
In this.
So-
In this, yes.
And I don't know for sure, and we should have that discussion, but I know that we do have a grandfathering portion of our code that talks about there's non-conforming uses that we don't enforce because they predated the code. And so I think any expansion of that, you know, if you added the 1,500 and you did the fire separation between the two, you're not enlarging the non-conformity and you're complying with the new terms.
That's kind of
And
how I
so
was reading it.
if we can do some research, we can give a definitive answer probably at the next meeting.
Yeah, we can do that. With non-conforming, you can enlarge or expand.
Yeah,
Did you say
so
can?
Cannot expand or enlarge the non-conformity. So if the lot is non-conforming, then you have to get the lot out of conformance before you can divide or anything related to the lot. If the building is non-conforming, then you're not expanding that building at all until you bring the building into conformance. And a way a building could be non-conforming is setbacks, lot coverage, building height.
So having said that, I would just make this particular ordinance code related to new construction only, and then we deal with the non-conforming and adding in another paragraph or another ordinance, because I never even thought of that. It's gonna have to be addressed.
Sure.
But it sounds like how it's written now, you would have to become conforming. I know in commercial work, if you do any alterations, you have to bring it to the current code, which is what makes it so expensive. Any other questions for me on the?
Yeah. So all of the fire chiefs and fire departments in the county are in accord with this?
Chief Brendel, yes, he's been made aware and he's supportive of standardizing. The thing is, they're a standalone agency as any agency. So Mountain Green Fire Protection District or anybody else within a county can adopt their own, they can strengthen, if they want to make it stricter, they have that legal right to do it. I just want the standard set, and then if they choose, or anybody chooses to make it more strict in their own jurisdiction, they have the legal right to do that. Okay, the item number 2. So, did you send the South Davis? So this is an example from the South Davis Metro Fire Agency. So, and this is in regards to plan reviews. So at the current time, any plan review comes into Morgan County, it's gone through civic review and then sent over to the fire department. And in the past, apparently, we've had some discrepancies in approvals and non-approvals that got the county in a little trouble. So my proposal here is we adopt something similar. It's called a peer review, and it would basically require anybody coming in that needs fire suppression systems to have a third party. They basically do all the review. That's what they do for a living. And they provide us with a letter, simple letter that says this building, this home, this whatever remodel is compliant with current codes and your ordinance. So they would have Morgan County's, any adopted ordinance along with IFC, the WUI code, and they'll send us a letter that says basically it meets. So that makes them do all the in-between with the developer or the contractor with one of the companies. And then they provide us. The big thing there is, my fire marshal's got his hands full just doing enforcement and the inspections. We're not experts at plan review. I know how to do it. I'm okay at it, but I don't want to miss some little thing to have come back and have it haunt the county or me. The peer review letter, again, they pay all the costs. Then we get the letter that says it's okay, and then we inspect it. And this is primarily the big one. And in the paper, we have exemptions. They have exemptions. So if mom and pop wants to do, the example is we just did a coffee shop and they want to move less than 10 heads or small one, we will do the plan review because that doesn't take but half hour.
So
Subdivision.
do you know what that cost is going to be to our citizens? Approximately.
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, it's all dependent on square foot and size, but it's pretty commonplace in other agencies. That's the other big thing. We get a third party peer review. They mess it up. They come back to sue. It's off us. And I hate to be that way, but this world is, as you guys are aware, driven by liability. Everybody wants to get a buck. I'd hate to miss something critical. I feel like we won't, but we have enough coming in this county development wise that our hands are full with inspections, just in enforcement. We have a really good relationship, myself especially, with Chris Tremaine, everybody in planning and zoning. So it's not uncommon for us. The last 2 weeks, we're out with inspections. They're with us. We're making sure we're all on the same paragraph, not just the same page. So as you go down, we give these are the 3 primary protection engineers in the area, but we'll also accept one of their own. They just have to get it pre-authorized. Because, I mean, the 3 that are listed there do 80% of the fire reviews in northern Utah. So we won't restrict them as long as they get it pre-approved if they have an engineer of their choosing that meets the criteria license that's laid out here. And we're getting, the third party, we're getting the occasional one. We got one last week from an architect in California that's asked, does it have to be stamped in Utah? We don't address that in code, and we told them on the phone, yes, you do. And they didn't push back, but I don't know if you got the highlighted one. That's something we probably will put in here. And primarily you're getting that on the big stuff. Wasatch Peaks is the call, but you're going to see some other houses that are, when you're moving into this second and third vacation home, which is unfortunately going to be in this county, you get a lot of architects from Montana and California in particular that design big mountain retreats. So we want to restrict that to a Utah engineer. Questions on that one?
Nope.
Okay. Item 3, Commissioner Fackrell, I think this is kind of getting, this one obviously is going to be the most controversial for folks, but I've got to start somewhere. So again, I'm spending a lot of time looking through the current zoning. Just depends on down there on the 1, 2.55, 10 acre, 20 acre, especially looking at outside the area. That's an awful lot of houses to not have a water system in. Our office just received a preliminary request for a 14 lot subdivision off, which is a prime example of my big concern. It meets the current zoning that they can do 14 lots with no hydrants, no water protection, no tanks. And that's a humongous concern for me. The problem we get if we don't back that down is you're going to get a valley full of 14 lot and 12 lot and 9 lot because the code allows it. Then I have an entire valley with no storage and no hydrants. And then at some point, it's going to be forced back onto the county to put water system in. And that's going to be millions of dollars for the citizens. Developers, and I'm not hammering them, but when you develop, we need to have the infrastructure put in at that time, not come in later and try to put in hydrant systems. I mean, hopefully that makes some sense. And then we, you know, as you develop, especially these bigger ones, then we can develop buyback agreements. So if a developer comes in and puts a $250,000 tank for his 20 or 10 lot subdivision and somebody taps into it, they pay a portion of that install cost and he starts to get his money back. But again, I don't want to see that saddled on taxpayers for the county. So the zoning thing, and this is the proposed amendment, and again, this is more for just discussion, is Weber Fire District. I met with their fire marshal, so they have very similar issues in Huntsville. They require fire suppression system, period, over 3 lots. So if you do a 4 lot subdivision of any size, you're going to put in a tank and a hydrant system. And they're requiring 240,000 gallon tank at a minimum, where IFC is indicating right now it's 150. The 24, which is going to be adopted in July, kick that up to 180. His verification, he went at 240,000 gallons. That's 2,000 GPM of fire flow for 2 hours, which is the minimum required. And the 2,000 gallon fire flow is for a 10,000 or bigger. So that's like worst case scenario. So again, this is kind of back to the sprinklers. I don't want there to be a reliance on 13D systems in a 14 lot subdivision with a 5,000 gallon water tank. I can burn through that in 2.5 minutes on a fire. Obviously that's not enough time. We need the water, and this is primarily for the future. So that's the reason I brought this one up. For we need to discuss it. We need to come to some sort of resolution sooner than later. You know, again, you guys see the applications for subdivisions. It's not letting up. So that is it for me tonight.
I have a question. When you guys go out to put out a fire, what is your goal? What is the goal? Because like this house fire we had, is the goal to protect people? Is the goal to try and save the structure? Is the goal to, because to me, the structure's gone.
You're exactly right. So the priorities for us is,
so we're
we call
trying
it
to put in-
exposures. So the first exposure, when you're acre lots, the ability to put the next house out has to be there. We still have to put the fire out. You're exactly right. The insurance company is going to total it. But more importantly is when I roll up on that house fire and grandma walks out and says, my husband's in the upstairs bedroom and my grandchild's in the basement. I don't have the water. My people are going to do what I know they're going to do, and that's going to hurt or kill them because they don't have the water to go in. You know, our simple nozzles, 200 gallons a minute, 150 gallons, 200 gallons a minute. You can see now the 13D tanks, that's if we can access them. Are they full? Are they not? Okay, in the wintertime, I can't get to them. I guarantee you we can't get to them because they're typically in a yard. Are they half full? Are they a fourth full? Are they 3/4 full? I don't know. So we can't depend on those. This is, again, the point of the fire. The fire on Stagecoach, had that been in August, we might be burning half those houses down because of an exposure, because it gets in the grass and starts running in the wind or the trees or whatever else. So there's kind of a lot more to it. That helped answer your question?
It did.
And again, we can buy all the water trucks we want, but I don't have the staff to run them. I just don't. And how we run, we're already in Morgan County behind the 8 ball when a structure fire comes in. Because a typical house fire, if you study NFPA, 12 to 15 people minimum to work on a house effectively. If we get 4 or 6 within the first 15 minutes, we're doing pretty well. Our help is so far out right now. And it's just, that's what happens when the conditions in the county. You know, we're strengthening. We have a meeting next week about our automatic aid agreements, but South Summit or North Summit from Hennifer, when they're staffed in July, Mountain Green, and then our next closest engine is South Weber. So at best we can put 6 to 9 people on it. So the water supply is imperative that we have enough water to do our job. We're not going to have enough people. I mean, the county can't afford to, and our call volume doesn't dictate having 20 people a duty on day. I'd love it, but it's not going to happen, and I realize that. I'm just trying to equalize the playing field as well as we can to do our job. And again, the water supply has to be addressed. The county's booming like no tomorrow. Those of you that lived here understand that completely. It's like everywhere. You know, I remember Ogden Valley 25 years ago. There were no subdivisions. There were no townhouses. And now you can't buy a lot up there for under 500 grand.
So are in this kind of a situation, are they suggesting, or are you suggesting that they punch a well, they put a big tank underground and it's pressurized, or what does that look like, I guess?
Exactly. You would meet water quality, which is public work stuff, and the state water quality, but punch a well, typically we like gravity fed, but understanding that, you know, on the flatlands, you're not going to get it, but they have fire pumps, the pump houses, so you'll have a pressurized water system. So if you're in the flatlands, that's exactly what we would like, is a tank, and typically those are above ground. If you ever drive out to Roy, Midland Drive or anything, if you look off, you'll see they've got a couple of 2 million gallon tanks above ground. But 150,000 gallon tank isn't enormous. 200,000 gallon, there are 7 of them in Wasatch Peaks above ground.
They do for the freezing.
So it's a tank. It's mass and volume. You can insulate the walls, but typically a 150,000 gallon tank isn't going to freeze. The plumbing underground is protected by the earth. The pump house where they pump is all heated.
They've got them all along the east bench of Salt Lake County. You got those big tanks up around the hill.
Well, where I came from, Layton, we have 11 or 14 above ground tanks. Ideally, but the point is that probably it's a conversation that would have to be had, as design criteria with zoning, because I think you need to be aesthetically pleasing. Nobody wants a metal tank in like Kansas hanging there. But for us, if you have a tank, even if it's underground, and a pump system that'll pump adequate pressures and keep our volumes up. I mean, if I'm getting 1,000 gallons a minute out of a hydrant system with a pump, that's better than having no water. Yeah. And it's, 2,000 gallons with the gravity is way better, but realistic.
May I ask you a question? You address zoning, rural residential, and agricultural for the subdivision water supply. What would you suggest for a town center zoning with many townhomes and businesses?
Well, town centers, like if you're doing high density, that has to be.
You already have a water system in place.
Yeah.
They're not going to be built with no water system.
Exactly.
But I will note
I
that
mean, you have this for every 3 acres. Would it come down? That's what I'm getting at too. It would be the
So
same.
this has just come right out of the zoning ordinance for.
So
This is only for RRs, rural residential. Doesn't address anything else. That's why it's RR. That's our problem. Right now, like the townhouses around the corner, that had a water system that has hydrants. So we're cool with that. That's a perfect example. We have a hydrant supply. We have adequate water. There's fire separation in those things. From my standpoint, we're good. We're going to get more of those, but those Again, this is specific to rural residential. Has nothing to do with those. That's addressed in another area of the code. But it's a great question.
So the
Hopefully
big
that-
concern I have about subdivision water supply is that, to my knowledge, there's only 2 places in the county that have tanks of that size. Well, 3 if you count WPR. And that's in Mountain Green. There's 2 water companies that have tanks of that size, and Morgan City. All the other water companies within the county are much smaller and much smaller tanks. Most of them are 75,000, 50,000 gallon tanks, maybe 100,000 gallon tanks. And the concern will be, well, how do we deal with those situations? Yes, you have hydrants. Yes, there's water. Is there sufficient water? Well, probably not. It's better than nothing, right? Because at least there's a hydrant. But I think that's going to be something we're going to have to deal with and figure out how do we deal with that situation. I mean, I happen to sit on the board of a water company in Croydon. We have a 75,000 gallon tank, right? We have hydrants, but 75,000 gallons is going to go fairly quickly. It's better than the 2,000 or 3,000 that you're bringing on the truck, right? But it's still not enough. And I think that's something that we're going to have to figure out, is how do we deal with that? Because the last thing I want to do is scale back the sprinkler ordinance and then scale up something that's going to make it even harder for people to build homes in other parts of the county, because we're trying to make it easier to build bigger homes in the county, right? I don't think that makes a lot of sense. But anyway, and we can talk about that because we're not really at that point yet. But I'm just throwing that out there, that I think that's something we're going to have to address, is how do we deal with these smaller water systems that maybe don't have the flow that we need them to have, and yet not get into a situation where, I mean, I actually hate what Weber Fire District is doing and saying you have to build a water system if you're doing over 3 lots, right? If I wanted to build, I have 4 kids. If I wanted 4 lots for each of my kids on the farm, that would be devastating to try to put a water system in for that. I mean, you could never cover the cost, and what you'll end up doing is pushing developments to become larger and larger, because, hey, if I've got to develop a water system, well, now I want high density because I need to put in 200 lots to make it pencil, right? So there's a trade-off there that we have to kind of walk that line and figure out, how do we keep the safety in mind, but how do we also not create this need to build bigger and bigger subdivisions because we got to cover bigger and bigger water systems.
Can you come up to the mic? Sorry.
I'm getting yelled at by IT.
Heaven forbid I should have you get yelled at. So Mountain Green Water used to be a small water company, one of the 4 that I normally have to deal with. They ran into that problem with a small tank, and they addressed it by combining with the Highland Water Company, and they dug an 8-inch main, and now that has adequate water, because I had been on them for a number of years, where if we had a fire at 11 o'clock at night on that street, we couldn't use the fire hydrants, because more than likely on a hot summer night, you don't have any water left in your 20,000 gallon tank, which was not adequate. And that's 18 homes, but that's the way they did it. They combined with an adjacent company. I'm not saying everybody
That works great, but it's 10 miles from Croydon to the closest company that they could combine with, so that's not going to work.
Well, I own
and
a
it's
pipe
5
company.
miles from Porterville to the closest company. You know what I mean? So
I
there
know.
are areas where I agree with what you're saying, and I think that's great, where they can combine and make that happen. I think that's wonderful. But in other areas, we're going to have to figure out. And I think, to be honest, there are some areas of the county that are more rural than others, and maybe that's where we have to kind of start thinking about, well, how does that work? I don't know.
Well, I know how it works. When we ran that fire the other day in Stoddard, we had a tank. We ran out of water. So that's how it works. And that meant that we could not complete the firefighting. And so I don't want to be in that position if we can help it. I certainly support what Chief Wilkes is talking about. If we want to build, we need to have water. And I don't know how we're going to get it, but you got to be able to put that fire out before it sets the WUI on fire, and we're in a big jam. So thank you.
That's part of the conversation. More of this is moving forward. We're not going backwards. We'll do our best, but That's why I put -3-5. I threw out a number. I'm certainly not, I'm a lot more concerned with stuff in 10 or 12 acre lot houses than I am stuffing 10 on 20 acre lots, if that makes sense. I don't have quite the threat of a fire spreading to somebody else where, the more packed they are. So certainly open to discussions. The point is, moving forward, we've got to put these systems in place some way. And how we do that will be what we decide to do as a community. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to guide the future. I just want to make sure we're doing it responsibly. And I have kids too, and trying to put them in houses is difficult, when you're doing, this is primarily for major subdivision, the infill lots from whoever farmer giving one to a kid will deal with that individually with sprinklers or the hardening. This discussion is primarily our subdivisions, because a 41 lot subdivision in Hidden Hollow of water with 150,000 gallons of water was okay then. It's not now. I mean, our fires are just getting bigger. They're burning hotter. Houses, when I built my first house, I thought I had a luxury liner, and it was 1,200 feet on each floor. And I thought I just moved into the biggest thing in my life. And now nobody builds a 4,000 square foot house on 2 floors. It's 6,000, it's 8,000. And especially up here, the cost of property. I mean, we're just not a starter home area anymore. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. So again, any questions? Again, this last part is 3, is to get a conversation going, and we need to sit down sooner than later and start hammering out some sort of resolution, is what I would certainly like to see.
So, do you have a proposal for those that have 1 lot subdivisions?
I haven't done a proposal for anything.
I mean, I know,
Yeah.
but I'm saying, would you have? Because, I mean, if somebody says, well, I've got a 1 lot here and it's on 2 or 3 acres.
Yeah, so that doesn't
That's
fall
under the
in.
3
I
to
know it
5.
doesn't follow this, but I'm wondering, is there a recommendation?
Well, if we
for
just
that?
you just follow the current, whatever our current ordinance is. I
And the state
us-
code provides for a 1 lot subdivision, and lot is defined in state code very specifically. It's not just a division, a parcel, a meets and bounds description. It's a 1 lot subdivision, 50 feet of defensible space on each side. So, and that's what we adopted into our ordinance, was the state code when it first came down.
So
And there
I
is
was
exception for
curious.
a 1 lot
I mean,
subdivision.
my curiosity is, okay, there's a lot of places in Porterville that have 2 to 10 gallons per minute. Their house is going to burn down if that happens. Some have a little bit more, but mostly 2 gallons per minute to 7, maybe. So is there a recommendation for that, for fire prevention or fire mitigation?
No, I can't
according
go
to
back
even
and
the scat?
I can't go back.
I'm just saying,
It's-
for future homes that are built.
Well, we have in the codes, the WUI and IFC has a specific gallon flow for a well for fire protection. It's built right in there. So now when you get a permit, you have to provide a well report that says it flows X. And the code says it will have to flow X with the tank. I don't know that I have that here, but it's,
Okay. It's okay.
again,
I just want to make sure there's some.
but a single lot one is really not what we're talking, because they'll have to build, if they're down along East Canyon Creek, they're not in a high hazard thing, so they don't have to follow the hardening and everything else. It'll be just like we're doing now. If it's over 3,600 feet, they're going to have to put fire separation in. Kind of simple.
So that's what I was gonna say is, we look at that single lot, we go back to number 1.
Okay.
And that's your 3,600. And again, these are his recommendations. And my thoughts are, this is where we start. We work with number 1.
Okay.
And we can tweak and talk and discuss that. I'm looking forward to comments from residents. I've had a lot of phone calls in the last couple of weeks interested about this. And continue this conversation, and let's focus on number 1, and then we can start the conversation on number 3, because that one's going to be pretty in-depth. I mean, that's going to be a huge expense for anybody that's going to start a development, kind of like what Commissioner Newton was talking. I think we start with number one and not get too overloaded. Focus right there, because I think that's to me, that's where the whole purpose of this conversation started with the 3,600 square feet.
Yes, item 1 and 2 are the
And
two that.
yeah, I mean, that number two is the plan review process.
Yes, and that's exactly what was my hope tonight, was at least to put forward to you. We can't discuss 3. That's going to take some weeks to do, because we have to do it responsibly and make sure that we meet the intent of everybody. I certainly don't want to be anti-developer, but we can't be anti-fire suppression either. We got to find something that works. But 1 and 2, I think, are my proposals.
Chief, I do have a question for you. So I pulled up what I believe I found is the current WUI map. And so unless somebody has it, it's through DWR or whoever it is.
I got it.
This is where it's, okay. So looking at Morgan, I mean, this is kind of the ridges. There's not.
So you can see the high risk.
The high risk is the red.
This is the 95th percentile.
Okay.
So we're going to drop to the 90th, expand those areas
So-
just a little bit.
So my question, excuse me, would be, do they have a map that shows that 90? Because that will be the next question from the residents is, do they have a map that is the 90%?
Yeah, we called Tommy Thompson, he's the GIS, and he said, I'll run a map at any percentile you want.
Because I think, I mean, if that's your proposal of 90, I would like to see that so we can show that to the residents, that this is the proposal, and just kind of see what that impact will be, you know. And I love Commissioner, Chair.
Blaine,
No,
Fackrell.
no, sorry, Wilson. I had to go back to
Whatever
work
your
today.
name
It was
is.
terrible.
See, I'm not the only one that loses my brain.
When you start talking Louis, it all goes right out. Was, you know, what is the purpose of the fire department? And that is to get people out. It's to save people and not necessarily the structure, and to keep it from spreading. And so, you know, to seeing what that 90th percentile would be and see that comparison between the 95 to the 90 and to get that input, because really we're here to serve our people.
Correct.
You know,
The 95th is that red, and you can see in the 95th percentile in the entire county was 178 dwellings that we're aware of. We're looking at a 3D mapping system now, because I'll guarantee you, with the way the world is, there's stuff outlying that we don't know about that are being lived in, which is super important for us.
like trailers by the river or something, bounce by the river.
Or sheds up in the mountain with trailers backed
Right.
in, and they're living in them. They finished them unbeknownst to any of us. It happens. Like, you know, I spent
All right.
half my life fighting fires out of state, and I run into it all the time.
I appreciate the work. And I'd really like to see that 90 percentile
Yeah.
map, just as
I'll get that from him hopefully this week, and we can forward it and
Get something
look at the
going.
90th percentile.
So
Thank you.
what I'm hearing is task to staff to look at modifying based off chief's recommendations of number 1 and number 2, and get a 90th percentile heat map from the state.
That's correct.
so.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your time.
No, thanks for all the time you spent on that. Appreciate it.
Chair, can we go back to E5?
Yes.
So, and Josh is going to come up as well. We've both spoken to the applicant, and maybe Josh can give some of the history of combining the applications.
So originally, this was a single application submitted probably 2 years ago. It's been a long time. And it was just Matt Wilkinson wanting to pull out the Wilkinson land. The Nettletons came forward wanting to start talking about adding in their land. And they filled out an application at the time, but we combined the two because we thought the one-for-one swap would be good. So what we're hoping to do is split them back out, bring the Wilkinson portion forward earlier, and then let the Nettleton portion come later after the development group is complete. Right.
So with that, there were 2 applications, and we think that it makes sense to split them at this point, just because each applicant is, well, there's different timelines and what we need.
goals.
And yeah, exactly. And so if we could do the initial application that was filed by Matt Wilkinson, if we could continue that to a date certain, March 3rd, which is our next meeting, and then the second application to May 19th, that will give us time to get a development agreement amendment from their attorney and engage in some of those negotiations so that we can bring as close to final document to the commission to review. We think that that will help give clarity for the commission of what they're wanting, and then there's not a lot of negotiation that has to occur at a moment. It'll be as close to final, so also the public's aware of what would be going into a final agreement as well. So we think it helps all the parties. So those are the requests, and then this way nothing would have to be renoticed because both have already been noticed sufficiently and had those public hearings. And we'll just hold those hearings separately.
So to recap, so the request is to take the merged application, split it back out to its two original, the Wilkinson one to be heard at next commission meeting, which is March 3rd, and the Nettleton DA to be heard on May 19th.
That's correct.
I just have maybe a quick question. You can tell me this isn't the right time, but
It's not the right time.
it's not the right time. So when we discussed this a couple of meetings ago, when they delayed it the first time, so we were talking about the Wilkinson's property and the fact that it was they'd never sold it. So my question is, how are they part of a development agreement that their property was never purchased? How can it be encumbered in something that they were never, I'm confused how that works. Like they used somebody else's property in their development, but never actually gained access to their property?
Well, there had to have been an
Well,
agreement
there
one
was
time
an
that they
option
would represent
agreement
them.
that was never
There was an option to
exercised.
purchase.
Right, and
Never
because that's where supposedly this golf course and equestrian center was gonna be,
Correct.
possibly.
The thing that we can't find that's a requirement for every application are the owner affidavits giving permission for them to act on their behalf for the zoning or land use application.
So to be clear, they agreed to it at some point. It's
But
not that they just reached out and said, "Oh, we're going to
Well,
put this land
right,
in it."
but again,
the
we're
landowner
saying-
did agree to it at some point
But
to
they're
it
saying
being
there
part
was
of the
no-
project.
I will push back. We don't know that for certain. They
There's
agreed
no
to the
affidavit.
option contract, but not necessarily.
We don't have an affidavit.
Yeah, we don't have an affidavit.
Which we should have had.
Yeah, and so either it was never done, so we don't know for sure. But what we do know is that their land was encumbered, the option was never exercised. And so based upon a statute of frauds argument that any dealing in land has to be in writing, we don't have a writing. And so, I can't encumber Kate's property by recording a deed that conveys it to myself without her signature. And so we don't have the signature of the original owners or of the owners of those
And that was
phases
kind
that
of my
were
question
never
is,
purchased.
You know, it's like Wilkinson's are wanting to remove property that we have no proof was actually ever part of it. Yeah, and that's where it's like, just as I've thought about it over the last month since our first meeting about this, I'm like, how did that even happen? You know? And so, like you said, I mean, you've only been here a couple of years, I've been here a year, you know, but it's like, whatever went on up there, I look at the Wilkinsons, I'm like, they're having to ask permission to remove property that there's no proof it was ever part of it. So that's just kind of my confusion.
So, yeah, the whole thing's
It's really screwed
really,
up.
really confusing, but
Yeah.
if you look at it as a resident of the Cottonwoods, when you look at the advertisement of the entire development and you look at the DA and it lists all the property that was included in the whole development, that property was
Right,
in it,
and
but
that- and
not
that goes-
purchased.
and that goes back to
in
my-
the end. So
That goes back to my
unfortunately,
original
people
question.
bought because of
but not.
Some false
And I guess, and that's kind of my question is, if there's no proof that they were ever party to it, was it false advertisement? Were they sold something that really didn't exist? Or, I mean, and those are the questions that I've had is, if there's an affidavit, if they agreed with a handshake or something, but property requires writing. Those are my questions is, I mean, as people in the Cottonwoods, I've spoken to many, and I'm just like, yeah, it's like I went and ordered my truck, and at the end of the day, my truck showed up without leather seats, without the moonroof, and without these options, but I still paid full price.
Yeah.
So where does the liability land is my question. As, and it's like, where's the information? Where's the data? Where does it say that that property that you were showed when you purchased your lot, that it truly was part of that development agreement? Where is that documentation? Why is their property encumbered with no compensation? That's where I'm struggling. And so I feel for the people of the Cottonwoods going, wait a minute, I was sold this, and now you're saying, so it's like, where's that documentation? Where's the liability land?
There was, one of them was a shall,
That was the equestrian
the
center.
equestrian center. The golf course
Was a
was a
may.
maybe.
Right. And so again,
To me, the bigger problem is not which property, to be honest. It's that all of the calculations for density and the number of units were calculated based on the total acreage. Whether that acreage included the Wilkinsons or somebody else's, it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, other than ultimately, if there's not enough acreage to continue, then it needs to stop, or something
How
needs
did
to be done.
Northside Creek get pulled out? The development agreement. I wasn't here.
I don't remember
That
that.
should have been where the equestrian center.
I don't think it was.
No,
No,
Northside Creek is.
it was separate, I thought,
Stolen separate. It's got its own development agreement.
because the equestrian center was to the south of that, right?
That's correct. But a portion of Northside Creek somehow
Crouch.
encroaches into phase 6.
good stuff.
A corner of it, I think.
Yeah. So,
I don't know.
but as far as the agenda item for today and the discussion is, if we can get this to a date certain, then it allows it to move forward. It allows that development
Vaughn to get
agreement
us off
amendment to
track.
come. What was that?
Trust Vaughn to get us off track.
At least it wasn't me this time.
Yeah. So that's the request, and I do know that so Janet has done extensive research and has prepared some documentation, so I can share that with you as well. And there are some limitations on what the county can do because we're not a party to all the agreements that have taken place, and we're just processing applications as they come.
So I'm sure I need a motion, right? To move
Yes.
this forward.
How was you born?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we go with the recommendation of the planning department to split the two projects, the Wilkinson project to be heard on September 3rd.
March.
September. I don't know why I had September. March. 3-3. March 3rd. I'm trying to get through this year really fast, apparently. And the Nettleson project to be heard on May 19th.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Newton and a second by Commissioner Nickerson. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
We have a 4-minute break.
3.
3-minute break. Okay.
I don't think there's a big core discussion.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're on item number E7. Kate?
Okay, so lots of RFPs. I put some in here for grant admin. So as per our purchasing agreement, it needs to meet all the requirements of the RFP and be the lowest bid. The lowest bid for the grant admin was grant support at meeting all the requirements and $40 average per hour, where obviously the other ones did not. So request to, do you want me to do each of them individually or just all together? I just
What-
run through them.
I would run through them.
Okay.
Do we have to vote on them separately?
That's up to you. Okay. The airport beautification berm. This is the bid tab for that. As you can see, we had the lowest one didn't meet the requirements because they reached out to them and they had calculated the bid at 1,600 square feet instead of 16,000 square feet. Yeah, so the lowest bid on that met all the requirements was Airite. On this, those were budgeted. The animal control bid, I didn't do a bid on that. I'm sorry, a bid tabulation on that. I can give you the quick rundown. There were two that submitted, one being River Valley, is that what it's called? River Valley, they were $4,500 a month, plus with a 20 to 50% discount on services out of scope, where Mountain Green Animal Hospital was $1,000 a month with a 10% discount on services outside of scope, making Mountain Green Animal Hospital the lowest bid. There were two applicants for the impact fees, plan analysis, and the county fee assessment. One bid was $132,000. LRB was $74,000 for the same. So them being the lowest bid. We only had one bid on the county library for ceiling restoration. It was $24,108. They will have to replace all the sheetrock and paint. On the library gutter and downspout replacement, there was only one bidder. I'm requesting the commission, per the end of the RFP, puts in there that the, whoever is awarded the bid, the county reserves the right to negotiate. We think we can do that project much differently than how it was bid, specifically blowing out with a pressure washer the internal gutters and then just fixing what needs to be fixed. So request to negotiate that one instead of awarding the total bid price. And then I had Commissioner Nickerson and Commissioner Wilson go through the application, or I'm sorry, the bids that were submitted for the election security edition. And it sounds like the lowest bid that meets full qualifications is ACS. Any questions on those? Go ahead.
I have a question on the election security edition. Is
Go ahead.
that what we had talked about before with building the extension out?
Correct.
Okay. And it's the full distance, correct?
Correct.
And only partial not being
Correct.
finished, okay.
So my request today is to award grant support, the grant administrator service contract that's already budgeted, Airite Landscapes, the berm beautification that's already budgeted, Mountain Green Animal Hospital, the animal control contract that's already budgeted, LRB Finance, the impact fee, facilities plan and analysis and county fee assessment that's already budgeted. I need, if we're going to approve the county foyer ceiling restoration, I need to know what account you guys want to pay for that out of, requesting to negotiate the library gutter and downspout replacement with ACS and designate funding for that, and then to award the election security addition to ACS is my ask today.
As far as Ariette,
Okay.
Ariette, as far as funding goes,
Yes,
can that come out of the airport?
it is.
Okay,
That is that account.
okay. I
38.
just wanted to make sure because that, I mean, we're receiving a certain amount every year from the U.S. Forest Service.
That's that budget line item.
Yep,
It's
we're
Fund
trying to
38.
make them pay for,
Good.
trying to,
I appreciate that.
And there's also a grant, so that, we're only paying $17,000 of that.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve.
can I just say, are you doing anything on G or just the first four?
I was gonna do all of them. I just need.
No, I was talking to Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The only thing I want to there was a completion date that needs to be changed.
Okay. Well,
On
here's.
G.
So, okay, and I'll show you guys what he is talking about. Let me pull up the RFP. So when the RFP was published, it was published with a completion date of June 23rd. No later than election security. Oh, I'm sorry. Project schedule. Project to be completed, no later than June 2026. The reason that,
Can we break those two areas out? So the area that has to be done for her can be done, but the back area might not totally be done?
so I think that would fall under negotiations,
Okay.
our ability to negotiate. The reason.
We'd still have a contract come back on. This is just awarding the RFP. Now they're gonna have to send us the contract and we'll have to review and sign.
So with this being the date certain for the completion date, the reason that is because the clerk's auditor's office has an election on June 23rd. So that was brought up by a lot of, because I obviously sent this out to all of our local companies. And that was a concern is the project schedule date. So.
Good. All right. Go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the awarding of the RFPs as recommended by the county manager, including authorization to negotiate on items E and F, and the funding to come from,
F and
G.
excuse me, F and G, and the funding to come for E and F from the Capital Improvement Fund.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Newton and a second by Commissioner Fackrell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Let's see. We had, we being the Community and Economic Opportunity Board had 56 applications for the grant. The budget was for 75,000 for this line item. However, there is an additional $50,000 budget for a second round. So they are requesting to award $78,111. And these specific amounts to these specific businesses, and that additional $3,111 would come from the fall grant, 50,000.
Is there any way to, it's a special question of one of these recipients?
Go for it.
I know they're getting, or they would like to have enough for some equipment and to increase their menu, but is there any way that they would increase their hours of operation?
We can't require that, but
We can if we don't want to give it to them.
I'm going to disagree that
I'm
as a
just
governing
saying
body of
that
the county,
For all these years, they have still been closing at 2:00 in the afternoon. And yet we
whoa, whoa, whoa,
continue.
whoa, 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 whoa. Who are you talking about?
Deb Spicy Pie.
They don't close at 2?
Since when? Did they open it till 4 or 5 now?
What are you talking about?
Sometimes they're the latest ones open.
They're open
At
till
like
like
9.
they're like open till
People
9.
pizza's
Are you
good.
thinking the coffee shop?
No, I'm talking Deb's Spicy Pie.
Yeah, I 1,000%
Because
eat there on
when
the
we went
regular.
there with
and
one of the other
They're open in the evenings.
dignitaries, at 2:00 they were closed.
They close at 8 o'clock.
yeah.
Okay, that's good now. Then you answered my question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Because that was one of my requests a couple of years ago, is that I asked them, okay, if we're going to give this to you, we want to make sure that you open it later. So if they've changed that, that's great.
What I think is great is the number of applicants we had this year.
Amazing. Yes.
Because what was it last year? Like,
That qualified, 29.
we had 56 this year. So it's great. Word's getting out. Businesses want to grow and get help, and it's a great team over there that's been working on this. So with that, I can make a motion. Unless anyone else. Okay. I move to approve the 2026 Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity Pass-Through Business Growth Grants.
Okay,
I'll second
by
the
Commissioner
motion.
Blocker and a second by Commissioner Newton. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Kate?
Okay, the last item is, we received an email from Mountain Green Sewer Improvement District. They were wanting to meet tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to finalize, some final details in the Kent Smith, this is not, the Kent Smith, there we go, the Kent Smith Park rental. I asked Jeremy Sorensen if that would include any type of negotiation, because I would need to request from the commission negotiating authority. And so that's what I'm asking for now, is I would hopefully bring Janet Christofferson, whose name I spelled wrong in this, in with me, as she's done all that detail of the red line. At minimum, have her on speaker, and hopefully we can get that done and going and bring it to you on the March 3rd. So that's my request, is to be authorized to negotiate the final details of the Kent Smith Park rental as defined within the parameters of what the county attorney's office has recommended in their previous notes on the subject.
I'll move that.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Don't wanna
Got a motion by
state it
Commissioner
again.
Fackrell and a second by Commissioner Newton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Yeah, let's get it done.
Okay. As there is obviously lots going on in the county, you got the wonderful email about the damage that happened to the fairgrounds today. Just letting you know that we are in an application process for a grant to put in new bathrooms and a new exhibit building at the fairgrounds. However, we will regardless be submitting an insurance claim on our current due to damage. As you've seen, we have an amazing and highly intelligent fire chief, so I'm very grateful to get that off my plate. And I know we have a bunch going on with the legislature, which I'm sure a lot of you will speak to. And are you going to speak to the weed abatement board in your? Okay. So I think those are my main updates from last meeting. Airport, are you speaking on that as well? Okay, so we had our airport meeting, and we did order signage to go out at the airport. Specifically, the issue is whether I'm assuming they're local, but we have local and users of the airport that don't understand that it's unsafe to allow your kids to ride their bicycles and little four-wheelers and everything else on an active taxiway. And additionally, we do have some neighboring residents that are walking their dogs on the taxiway. So the signage is already ordered to remind people that that is private property and not to do that on an active taxiway. As a pilot myself, it's you can't stop when you are in the middle of landing. And there was an incident a couple weeks back where there were little kids literally going across the taxiway as on the runway. That's what I meant to say. While a plane is landing. So
Keep your kids off.
at some point, we will be talking about, gates on the airport, but right now, I think some basic signage will do that. As you know, you just awarded the bid for the landscaping. That is that'll go and block the airport's view and create an acoustic barrier between the airport and the residents across that road. And it is a 3-tiered height, so it should be this. They're hoping to have it in and done March, April. There is 120 days listed in the RFP that date certain that they need to have that completed by. And the last thing was the last commission meeting. Commissioner Wilson, you brought up about extending the taxiway. So we did pull, Garrett and I did pull that lease agreement with the Phase B of, I forget the name now. I just want to say
It's a 9-line.
9-line. Thank you.
9-line leases.
And it doesn't specifically state that the county is responsible for it. It just says that the applicant is not, but it doesn't give a deadline. The county does not. Good gravy. The airport does not have it in the budget this year to extend the taxiway, and because it's not in the language that we have to do it right now, we'll just have to budget that for a different year. But we'll also be eligible for the grant that we're doing currently for the crack seal and for the slurry. Right now, we already have an open grant to get that done this year, so we won't be eligible to apply for that grant till next year, and then we can apply for that to help offset the cost of extending the taxiway. So,
We pulled the minutes of the meeting, and it talked about extending the taxiway. And Joe, who was the airport manager at the time, talked about there were grants for it, and then there was a discussion that it may extend to this point, or maybe we'd like to extend it further down. And so my understanding in reviewing that meeting is we'll have to bring it back to determine how far you want to extend the taxiway.
other than that, I do need a closed session on acquisition and disposition of real property. That's all I have.
Okay. So, Mike, we'll change things up.
Awesome. Sounds good. Just want to give an update. We allocated funding to do some improvements at the Taggart River access area. Public Works has been busy working on that. Without snow to push, they've had a little more free time this winter, which has been great. So they've moved a tremendous amount of material. If you go by there, the road is significantly wider now, which will allow for much better traffic flow. Won't be able to put pavement down until it warms up quite a bit more, but they've spent about $27,000 thus far just in materials and hauling rock and stuff. It looks really great.
Cool.
I think that's it for now. Yeah, that's all.
We had another weed abatement board meeting. We actually met with the Summit County weed abatement supervisor and Davis County, who gave us a lot of good information as far as working with the railroad, UDOT, private landowners, basically the cost of using a helicopter to spray along the railroad and how we would just basically send the bill onto the railroad. And so the one person that he uses up in Summit County to spray along the railroad is very familiar with the railroad, so knows how that all works. And he kind of figured it would take, what, an hour, maybe an hour and a half to spray the entire length of our county with the railroad, and with a cost of about $30 to $35 an acre with the cost of the helicopter. They also, we discussed kind of a loaner program for people to use backpack sprayers, and what they do up in Summit and how that's been really effective to help the residents to keep their weeds at bay. So we were looking into that. Joel, who's our weed abatement supervisor, he was going to look into the cost of purchasing some sprayers, start out small, and kind of get a good weed abatement program started. So it was I thought it was a very good meeting, very productive. Basically, it came down to how can we expect people to take care of their property if we're not take care of what little county property there is, but also to help them to be able to take care of it and promote that. We do have, there's a $10,000 grant through the conservation district where people can purchase herbicide and then get reimbursed up to $250 to help with that cost. So if we get some sprayers, and with that, it should really help people to be able to take care of their property and do that. Learned quite a bit about different weeds, and there's bugs that they use to eat some of the weeds, and you don't need to use chemicals and those kind of things. So very, very good meeting. So more information to come as that.
They bring bugs in?
Oh, yeah.
They have certain bugs that will eat certain plants and whatever, and the guy from Summit County was all excited.
Goats?
Well, they're not sheep. He did talk about a little bit of the goat projects that they have, and we talked about up above Reese's, up on that real steep hill, about you could put sheep and goats in that because it'd be really difficult to spray, those kind of things, but you could use animals to get up into there. And did I miss anything, Kate?
They also wanted to remind us that it's just not about remediation. It's also about planting, turning around and so, okay, we get rid of Dyer's Wood in this area. It's just going to keep coming back if we leave the area blank. So planting something, some
That's
type
right,
of
yeah.
native
Something to take its
grass.
place. There was one that was kind of interesting, and I can't remember the name of it, maybe Kate does.
Yellow star thistle.
She's got the good memory. It is located up in 910 Cattle Ranch.
And it's been in Mountain Green.
And you guys have it over there. I'll keep it over Mountain Green. So don't let us. But there's a one spot that I guess is in the Morgan County piece of 910 that it's like let's get a hold of it because if it spreads, it gets pretty nasty. So,
It's like if your horse chewed it,
they say
it'd kill it.
it'll kill your horse. Yeah. So
That's a question. Was there discussion about how to potentially stop the spread of Dyer's Wood through the canyon, even though that's not our property, it's Weber County and Davis County?
So one thing with the if you looked at the canyon, that came up a couple meetings ago about how they've been spraying UDOT and Weber have been spraying quite heavily in the canyon this last year, and there's a lot less than there was, especially down there kind of at the mouth and working its way up. And they will sound like they were going to continue to work on that and try to hit it. So we also did bring up if there are landowners that have areas of Dyer's Wood that are heavy, that they're looking for areas that they can try different things on, and that through the conservation district, that the state is wanting to kind of study their areas and try different sprays and things that will work towards the Dyer's Wood. So if we have people that have a larger piece of ground, it sounded like it was about 5 to 10 acres or more, that's pretty heavy. I could think of one over Mountain Green off the top of my head, and I won't share whose name that is, but that would be good to if people are looking for some help, that they are looking for areas to do some studies and to try different remediation tactics on the Dyer's Wood. So I did talk to Kerry briefly on legislation about the donations for the meat to the food pantries, and we had both kind of all of a sudden it just popped in my head, and I texted Kerry, and he was going to follow up on that to try to work that into some legislation this session to allow that to happen. So I haven't heard back. I do want to say that I did remind him of that. So I think that's all I have.
Blaine? First off, I want to commend Mike, Kate, and Garrett for their discussion and their in front of the legislative board the other day for House Bill 445. It was fantastic the way you presented it, and each one of you in your different comments. I mean, I loved it. There was no need for me to speak. You guys did it. So I did mine 2 weeks ago in front of the UAC, and we've gotten a lot more support with it. The bill did pass out of the committee 7-2, and I think it's going forward. I don't know. Have you guys looked at the when it's on the agenda for the House bill? The House. Anyway, other than that, there's a lot of bills going on out there, and I think we've got most of them under control. Some that was with, one in particular was with the Senator McKay, House, or Senate Bill 97 and 78. 78 and 97, they're similar. But the 78 is on the property tax relief and the abatement program. And it's 97. We're not sure what is going to happen. Did we approve? I think we opposed it. But anyway, so those are some of the things that are going on. Vacating of roads was today with our public lands, and other lands were House Bill 444. If the state comes in and says, this might be for Brett, but if they come in and they say they are going to close a road of any sort, they have to come to the legislative body of that area to be able to close it. So that could be detrimental it'd be for the state. For us, it'd be great, because that way they can't close a road. So anyway, that one's going into, I think, sessions this week. There's, of course, a lot of water amendments. One of them by Casey Snyder, 39. Planning. Oh, water planning was okay. It was the other one, 505. There's some questions on that. So look it up.
Can you say that number again?
Yeah, HB 505 was the water amendments.
Okay, that was HB.
HB.
Okay.
The water planning has to do with the WUI system. So that was 439. Okay. And the trails, Wasatch Front, and of course Wasatch Front. I had discussion there with some of the goals and plans of the active transportation for some trails down through the canyon, and they says they've got it on the dock. So that's going to be a good thing. And other than that, that's it for me.
I'll just briefly touch on one of the Senate bills that Commissioner Vackrell discussed. That was SB 78 from Senator Dan McKay. Basically says he's had it with the counties, and all subsidized state abatements are going away, and now counties can have their local control. So if we want an abatement program, we're welcome to it. Salt Lake County did ask that, and he was getting rid of the deferment program too, that maybe he could add back in deferment program and a state revolving loan of about $20 million to pay to the tax entities. And also in his bill, it requires a lot more, my mind is not blank. What's the word?
It requires you to apply for it.
No, you have to list on the line item now how much each taxpayer is paying towards the abatement in your county. Transparency.
Yeah,
There you go. There's the word.
That's right.
And then he said, in response to the request for the deferment program and a revolving loan, that he wants all 29 counties on board with signatures signed in blood.
One thing I've noticed about him is he says whatever's on his mind.
And he is the chair of the Utah State Tax Commission, so if we want to support this or not, I'm sure it'll be brought forward.
So with that, they were asking, I think, if we could, didn't they ask if we would draft a letter from our commission?
I think UAC said they would come up
They would
with
do
a
it,
draft
okay.
letter.
Which means we're going to need to sign it. if we don't-
They still like this?
Yeah, they do. There's only 2 counties that don't.
In reference to trails, Lilia and I were able to meet with, she tracked down the guy from the railroad, and since he's out of state, we had a Zoom meeting with Sean and Lily and I the other day. So I went in and met with Sean and today, and he has a map to try. We're just trying to get some of those areas bridged, those gaps bridged, and so we can continue on. But that's a slow process. I think all of you know that. So it's kind of like the beautification at the airport. I think that was 5 years ago, the first day I was here.
5 years ago.
Me too.
And so I'm excited that that's going to get done. And I know that those people down there are going to appreciate it. It'll be a cool thing. And then other than that, Weber Human Services meeting, I don't know if you're attending that, but that got postponed till this week, so I can't report on that. So I'll just look for a motion to go into closed session.
I did forget one thing. Sorry. We have met with a company called Nearmap. They do the flyover imagery, and there's an opportunity for us to essentially glom on to Davis and Weber counties flyover. The last time we looked at flyover imagery for the assessor's office, we were looking at about $260,000. So I didn't even entertain it because that's a lot. They're thinking they could do it if we signed on for this flyover in April. So just a heads up, I probably bring this on March 3rd. We have a meeting tomorrow at 4, but he's thinking it would be somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000.
What's the flyover for?
It's flyover imagery so that we capture like lost, like properties that we don't have houses on, and we have up-to-date imagery in the residential corridor instead of the assessor's office going out to every single parcel. They have a full layover GIS map of imagery. So I cannot tell you how super cheap that is. So I'm warning you in advance. I'm probably coming with an ask. That's it. So sorry, that was my last thing. I apologize.
Mr. Chair, I move that we go into closed session for the purpose of discussing the acquisition or disposition of real property.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Newton and a second by Commissioner Nickerson. All in favor?
Aye.